Hello everyone, welcome to a new live stream. I just thought I'd show you the intro first, and then we'll go on from there.
I'm in forest looking for some exciting images of birds. Let's just see what we can get.
So we are live and we have no guests, unfortunately, and I would encourage everyone on the Facebook group that I try and get on the live stream to please come on and have a chat and talk about photography. So I'm on my Todd this time, so I just thought I'd go through some questions that have been on the group, give you my take on any sort of answers. So I've got quite a few questions on here, and since I've got no one on the actual stream today, we'll go through that shortly. I want to talk about the R8 and give you a brief rundown of the specifications of the gist of the camera. So it's a full frame camera, the R8, 24 megapixels. It can do 40 frames per second, 6 frames per second in first curtain shutter. That will reduce any possibility of rolling shutter. 4K video oversample from 6K, 10-bit C-Log free. It's got an OLED viewfinder, 2.36 million dots. So obviously Canon brought out a APS-C budget camera to be their replacement for the Rebel cameras. The R50, which is a 24 megapixel camera, 15 frames per second electronic, 630. Obviously it'll have the same functionality of the R8 in terms of 6 frames per second first curtain, but the electronic side of it is 15 frames per second. Now, if you've gone on Canon's website, they've actually stated that it's got an electronic shutter, and that's actually wrong. It doesn't have. In fact, both of these cameras don't have a mechanical shutter, just electronic and first curtain, which is like an in-between mechanical shutter. Basically, when you have a mechanical shutter, you've got two elements mechanical that work to take the picture. With first curtain, what happens is the electronic side of it starts it off, and then there's a first curtain shutter that comes up like that. It's sort of an in-between, basically. It's not a full mechanical shutter, though. Both cameras should be more than capable of doing 120p HD. And obviously the R50 is 4K 30 oversample from 6K in terms of its functionality. So basically the R8 is going to have a better capability of doing 4K video in terms of doing it at 60p, but the R50 isn't that far behind. To be honest with you, I think 4K 30 is more than adequate. 60p is better, 60 frames per second, I mean. So in terms of your fast shooting capability, you're getting 15 frames per second electronic, but you're probably going to get a little bit of rolling shutter in there. Obviously 6 frames per second first curtain. The R8 is 40 frames per second, which is a lot faster, but it's got the same sort of first curtain shutter at 6 frames per second. And let's just see if we've got any comments. So Terrell Cochran says hello. Nice to see you on. It's really a big struggle for me to get people to come on to the stream and have a chat. And I would appreciate anyone who wants to come on. Just let me know. You know, I'm more than happy to post it in the comments if you want to come on. So there you go. There's the link in the chat if you want to come on and say hello and have a bit of a chat about camera equipment. I'm more than happy to do so. I was expecting two other regular contributors to come on, such as Dan and Alan, but they seem to be a bit busy at the moment. I hadn't done one of these for a long time, so I do post in the Facebook group Canon lenses and cameras quite often, telling people about the live stream, even putting a live event up. But very few people want to come on and have a chat, and it is quite disappointing when I put a lot of effort into these. So if any of you guys are watching, and or do watch it later on, please come on board and say hello and have a bit of a chat. So we've got quite a few questions I pulled off the Facebook group to go through. Now I was hoping I'd have a panel to have a bit of a chat with those questions. So Sonal Diaz says, which one is a good one, Canon RP or Canon 6D Mark II, and why? I think the RP is pretty much lagging in its fast shooting capabilities. So now, I won't recommend it, to be honest with you. The 6D Mark II is going to be a lot more fluid and quicker. Obviously, it's a digital SLR, not a mirrorless camera, so you won't be able to use RF glass. But I would certainly recommend possibly upgrading to something a bit more modern. The R10 springs to mind. Obviously, it's not full frame, so the only other option you've got is the R8. Now, I've noticed that the price has gone up from 1,500 to 1,700. Canon has a big habit of increasing prices quite a lot, so it can be quite frustrating. So another question that's being posted from Amanda. I just got the RF 100 to 500 and I'm not thrilled. I'm actually feeling discouraged, disappointed, kind of mad. I got this. I took a bunch of photos of some deers tonight. All are extremely soft. I missed some potentially awesome photos because this lens is just weird. My Sigma would have nailed these. What is with this lens? I'm using the R7. So remember, all full frame lenses are taxed a little bit when you use APS-C cameras. However, the problem you're probably experiencing, a lot of people have mentioned this. In fact, we discussed this very subject in the last stream, where what it is when you take a lens out of a warm environment into a cold environment, your lens will fog up, and it will make your images soft, and you'll think there's something wrong with your glass. It's simple physics regarding temperatures. You need to allow your lens to adjust to the temperatures, as well as obviously the condensation in the air, because you will, even with a sealed lens, you will get some condensation in your lens at some point. So that's what's happening, Amanda. You just need to leave your lens outside to allow it to normalize. Because what it is your lens is up here, right? And the cold temperature is outside. And you need to allow that to normalize. It's based on the pressure as well. And once it's normalizing temperatures, you'll find that your lens cleans up quite a lot, and you'll be able to take pictures really sharp. I don't think it's an issue with your lens, just the temperatures. Obviously, if you're going out into hazy environments, just keep in mind heat haze will affect your images as well. Even in winter, you will get heat haze from time to time. So it's just a matter of allowing your lens to get used to the temperature. So Jeremy finally made the jump to the R5. 60D served me well for the last 13 years, but moving on up, what's your best tips? Just get used to the camera, mate. Read the instructions. There's a lots of helpful hints and tips on YouTube talking about how to use the R5 proficiently. and it's just getting used to the camera. I know it's going to seem daunting, especially if you've used an old 60D, which is quite an old camera in comparison. And you know, the menu system may have changed a little bit as well. So just remember to give yourself a bit of time. Don't just go out assuming you know you're going to know your camera and it's just going to be like the old system. It's different. There's going to be different options in the menus as well, different capabilities. Obviously, you've got extremely really good animal and eye tracking systems in that camera that you didn't have with the 60D. So, you know, it's just a matter of getting used to the camera. And I can recommend, I think Jared Pollan did a walkthrough on the R5. Watch that. It's pretty good. I'll tell you how to use the camera quite well. So, Aaron, hello. I picked up an EF 85mm 1.4L IS on a good deal here on Marketplace, but when I received it, it had a spec on the inside of the Element. If you go onto the Facebook group, you'll be able to see a little picture where there's a speck of dust. That's normal in lenses. You can get your lens professionally cleaned by Canon, and I would. It's up to you really if you want to get it repaired or cleaned, serviced professionally by Canon. If your lens is quite old, they may say no, we can't do it anymore. But there are third-party companies out there that can do it. But you're talking quite a big cost. So see, when I got my 500mm f 4.5 Sigma lens from the States, imported to the UK, the contact block wasn't working properly, and I wanted the lens cleaned as well, just to eliminate any possibility of there being any sort of fungus on this older lens. And it would have cost me £250 to get that done. But remember, it's a massive lens. Small lenses would be a lot cheaper. But there are services out there to get lenses cleaned. So, you know, I would recommend, you know, looking online, having a look, see what's out there, see what companies will charge you. If your lens is quite new, obviously go to Canon, get it serviced. But if it's quite old, consider going elsewhere. There are companies out there that can do it. Just make sure they're a reputable firm that you go to. So James, bit of a dumb question, says, what's the difference between a 70 to 300mm tele macro lens and a 70 to 300 lens? I'm still new and find lenses a minefield. So James, the main difference is the 70 to 300 tele macro has a macro function on the lens. Sometimes there's little switches on lenses, sometimes they're in, and all it means is it can focus a lot closer than the other lens can, and it allows you to do macro photography, which is taking pictures of small items, you know, like an SD card like this, really close up. That's pretty much what a macro functionality is. So, you know, essentially that's the main difference, James. Macro lenses do cost more money than normal telephoto lenses. But yeah, get hold of one of those macro functionality lenses and you'll be happy to do macro photography. A lot of things that I find interesting to do is flowers. Other people like to take pictures of coins, you know, get really close to a 50p piece coin. You know, that's essentially macro photography is really interesting. You can get some really interesting images close up. So Thomas says, just out of curiosity, they have sites that legit do giveaways, and best places to get a 300mm tele lens for a Canon affordable. Well, yeah, there's lots of competitions you can do online, obviously. Various companies doing special competitions, and you can enter into those and see if you can win something. I think National Geographic have done that in the past, and other photography magazines do that as well, such as Amateur Photographer and Professional Photographer, something like that. No, sorry, not professional. Practical Photography. That's one good magazine that I used to rely on, and it was a fantastic magazine to use to learn photography back in the day. And they do have an online publication as well. As for a 300mm tele lens for affordable, to be honest with you, I would recommend the f4L lens. Get it on eBay, and might be a bit more money you want to spend, but as a brilliant wildlife lens, the IS one in particular is pretty good. You can always put an extender on there, getting you to about 420mm, and you've got IS. Obviously, it's only 2 stops of image stabilization, but it's a good lens, so consider that. Jonathan, looking to buy a 100 to 400 EF mount. I've been using it on the Komodo and sometimes with the Metabones in the speed booster. Has anyone used this combo? Any issues that you encountered, like Vigneting? Thank you for your input. I've not really used those speed boosters, but I believe you can get something like a 1.7 boost in light. And they are effective on APS-C cameras more so than you would. Well, I don't think they would be beneficial on full frame, but on, say, the Micro Four Thirds system, they work, as well as the APS-C. You won't get the full light for light that you would get on full frame, but it's not far off. I think it's probably around 90% in terms of wide angle view you get with the speed boosters. You will get a little bit of vignetting. Obviously, if you zoom out, it's less so. So, you know, that's something that you want to look into. Go ahead. Speed boosters do work. They're not ideal. Remember, it's a piece of glass as well. So you're gonna lose a little bit of light from that little piece of glass. But it's designed to give you more of a wider field of view and allows more light to enter the APS-C camera. So Bob, with the Canon R6, what are the settings for the fastest frames per second? I just got the R6 for sports photography and it didn't come with a manual. Just go to electronic, 20 frames per second. You can dial that down. Obviously, the mechanical is 12 frames per second. You will get rolling shutter, even on the R6 Mark II. You do get some. And yeah, I would probably stick to the mechanical because it's got a mechanical shutter. So Kaylee asked, "Hi everyone, I'm new to this group. Pretty new to photography world. I do mostly couples, pictures, portraits, and families. I have the Canon RP mirrorless full frame, and I'm wanting some recommendations on lenses that won't break the bank, but still give me sharp quality. The 24-70 is a little out of my price range at the moment. I love blurred backgrounds for a lot of things as well. You might want to consider the RF 51.8. Obviously, that's going to be on a full frame, so it's going to be 50mm, but it'll do the job. It'll give you good images, good quality. I've never had problems with the Nifty 50 camera lenses at all. They serve their purpose and do a good job. Yeah, you can get the more expensive 1.2s that are like nearly £2,000. Obviously, you can get the EF version, which is a lot cheaper, or the RF version, which is quite expensive. Other lenses, there's lots of variable apertured lenses, 24 to 105s, that sort of thing. But obviously, you're talking a darker aperture. I think the RF version goes to 7.1. If I just see if we can bring up the Canon details, just give me a moment. Canon.co.uk. See if we can bring up some information on lenses there. Products, lenses. Just want to get some information on lenses. Just give me a moment. Sometimes you forget where things are. So yeah, like the RF 24 to 70 she's talking about here, 2.8L is 2,600. Quite expensive. But there are some more budget friendly lenses, I believe. Obviously the 85 prime is a good lens to use. It's an f2. It's only about £670. That's quite cheap. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. That's a bit cheaper because obviously she said she's on a budget. There's the 24 to 240, f4 to 6.3 ISUSM. That's about £1,000. So that's not a bad option. Obviously, there's the 100 to 400, £720 at f5.6 to f8. And I think there's a 105 somewhere. I'm just looking online. Can't see it. There's an RF24 1.8 prime, £715. That's pretty good. But yeah, there are some budget lenses you can get that will do a good job. So let's see what Terrell has to say. I would look at a good used 70 to 200 2.8, even if you have to adapt it. I'd agree with that. If you want to cut down on price, consider the 70 to 200 f4. That's a really good lens. As far as I'm aware, Alan is using that, and it's a fantastic sharp lens. It's actually sharper than the 70 to 200 2.8. Believe it or not, it's actually sharper, and it's a lot lighter. It depends if you really want that 2.8 aperture, but it's certainly, there's lots of options available out there. Personally, what I use is an STM lens, a 24 to 105. I think it's f4.5 to 5.6. Adapt it. It only cost me about £300. It's not weather sealed, but it's a good sharp lens. It does the job. Something I may wish to upgrade to at some point, which we're talking about around £1,000, is the 24 to 105 f4. Just keep in mind, STM lenses are really quiet for video, pretty much silent. However, if you get a USM lens in the EF range, they tend to make a little bit of a clicking noise, which could be annoying if you're doing video work. But as for normal photography, it's fine. So what other questions? So Laurie says, good afternoon. Thank you for accepting me in the group. You're welcome. I recently changed from a Nikon back to Canon. Got hold of a 600D, trying to find a good autofocus zoom lens for wildlife photography without spending hundreds that is compatible with the camera. So far, no joy, plenty manual focus, but not autofocus. Can anyone recommend a good lens or website that sells secondhand lenses in good condition that won't cost a huge amount? Thanks in advance. Well, first of all, look on eBay. You want to be looking at EF. You can also look for Sigma lenses. To be honest with you, I think you'd be really happy with the Sigma 150 to 600 for the 600D, which is a digital SLR. It's not mirrorless camera, and you can pick them up for around the 700 to 800 price mark. Really good prices. Because of RF glass, a lot of prices in the EF range has come down. Now, the only problem with the Sigma 150 to 600s is they do have a bit of pulsing going off on mirrorless cameras. So if you want to upgrade to a mirrorless camera in the future, you might want to wait until Sigma comes out with an RF lens. And I do think that will happen at some point. There's a lot of positivity out there in the camera world that thinks Sigma are on the verge of getting some sort of contract with Canon to come out with RF glass, but there's nothing that's been confirmed at the moment. But I think there's a lot of positivity coming out of Canon that suggests they're going to allow some third party. Why do I say that? Is they recently allowed a third party company, I can't remember the name, to make a manual focus lens. Now you might say, well, it's manual focus, you know, it's not autofocus. But because they gave permission, it leaves me on the possibility they're going to give others permission as well. And at some point, they'll give permission for autofocus. So that's why I'm sort of positive on that note. So Dave, I'm on the verge of buying a new Canon R7, which I'll use primarily for birding and other wildlife photography. I was shooting with the 70D and 60, but my 70D got a little wet, so obviously it's not working properly. On a recent trip to Antarctica and died. Well, obviously it's very cold in Antarctica, and to be honest with you, the 60 and 70D cameras are not hugely weather sealed. There is some weather sealing, but it's not massive. Fortunately, had my 60 with me, which obviously is quite well weather sealed. From everything I've read, the R7 is Canon's best mirrorless camera for shooting wildlife. I like the crop sensor, fast burst eye tracking. It's not great in low light. That's the only thing. So if you're shooting at dawn or dusk and it's during the dark periods of Antarctica, you're gonna have to consider possibly a wider apertured lens to go with that camera, or get yourself that R8, which is full frame. I think a combination of cameras is best, and I would certainly recommend never go on a trip with one camera, because if it goes, you're sort of screwed. So even if it's to pick up a cheap Rebel digital SLR camera, you know, that, let's say you've got some EF lenses that will still work on it, pick one up for 200 quid, take it with you as an emergency stopgap. However, if all your cameras are mirrorless, the cheapest option, realistically speaking, is the R50. I think £679 approximately, and it's the cheapest way into mirrorless as it stands. So if you're wanting something that is cheap and you can get now or pre-order now, get hold of the R50. It's not going to be super fast, but as an emergency stopgap, I would recommend getting it. As a new starter, definitely get the R50. It's equivalent to the older Rebels, the 600Ds, 700Ds, 800Ds. It's equivalent to any sort of older digital SLR Rebel camera. You know, any of the TI 5, 6, 7, 8s. Get an R50 and that should do a good job for you. So Dan, amateur photographer here, can't get decent pictures yet of my son's baseball team. He's a senior now, running out of time, out of gear. Canon R3, R5, EOS 90D, lenses EF 300mm 2.8L, RF 2870 2.0, RF 70 to 200 2.8, RF 100 to 500, RF 70 to 200. Help! I think I'm going to try and get an RF 400 2.8. After that, I'm going to quit. I don't know. He seems to be a bit all over the place with all these things in his head. RF 400 2.8. Well, it's a lot of money. That really is a lot of money. So obviously, it's up to you really what you want to do. Really, it depends. So basically, I can't get decent pictures yet of my son's baseball team. If it's outside, I would suggest the EF 100 to 400. You can pick those up used secondhand; they're really good. Or get the 100 to 500, providing it's in good light. If it's not, a 400 2.8 might be the only option if it's low, if it's dark outside or it's at night time. 300 2.8 as well. You know, I've got the 300 2.8 Mark II EF lens. Put the extender on there, it becomes an f4 420mm. Put the 2 times on, you've got a 5.6 600mm lens. There's various options out there. It's hard to suggest, really, because it depends how deep your pockets are, really, because you're talking probably around 11 grand for RF 400 2.8. I know it's about 13 grand for the 600 f4. Depends how far away you are. You know, if you can get really close to the players, 300 might be enough, but I suspect you probably will be wanting the 600. To be honest with you, the 100 500 is probably the best bet. You can always raise your ISO in these mirrorless cameras, but it depends what camera you want to go for, because you mentioned the R3 and the R5. A lot of money there as well. The R3 is about 6.5 grand at the moment. R5 is about 4 grand. You mentioned the EOS 90D, which is a bit strange to mention that, because I would have thought the R7 would be something I'd be talking about. But if you did go for the 90D, consider the 150 to 600. That's another option. Let's have a look. Any other questions we've got here? So Morgan, I am looking to upgrade my camera body. I'm debating on the R7 or the R6 Mark II. I shoot mostly wildlife, but some nature, and shooting to play around with macro. I'm starting to play around with macro. Looking for pros and cons of both. Thanks in advance for the feedback. It's really difficult to suggest there, because you talk about the R7, which is a mirrorless camera, APS-C, and the R6 Mark II, which is a full frame camera. So it's really difficult for me to suggest which one you should go for, because one's APS-C and one's full frame. So the full frame will be better in low light situations. You probably have to use an extender if you want to get more reach. Or the R7, not quite as good in low light situations, but is good in terms of giving you more focal length. So let me give you an example. On a 300mm 2.8 lens on the R6, you'd need to use a 1.4 extender to get you to 420mm. However, if you put the R7 on that 300mm, you get into about I think it was 470mm, something like that, near enough 500mm. So it really depends on how deep your pockets are, and do you want APS-C or full frame or both. Another option I don't think you've probably considered is the R5. Now, wait a little while. If the R5 Mark II comes out in 6 months, like I think it probably will do, the R5 will drop in price by probably £1,500, I would have thought. Not new, but used, you'll be able to pick up an R5 quite cheaply, I would have thought, in comparison to buying the R6 Mark II now. And you might be happier with the R5. It has a crop mode. It gives you effectively 17 megapixels, which isn't too bad on a crop. But in full frame mode, obviously you've got that 45 megapixels, and it allows you to crop your images quite a lot as well. So you've got options. For me, I went a different way. I went for the R6 and the R7. So the R7 gives me 32 megapixels cropped, and the R6 is only 20. But the R6 Mark II you mentioned is only 24 megapixels. There's only 4 megapixels more, so it's not a big deal. So, you know, it's really dependent on how deep your pockets are, really, in terms of what you want to go for. So another person who's posted a question, Warner, does anyone have any recommendations for getting a shutter count on the Canon 7D Mark II? I tried several downloadable softwares mentioned online yesterday and couldn't find one that worked for the 7D. Now there is, I can't remember the link, but you can go on YouTube and find the software. It's quite old and it will work on the 7D. As for the 7D Mark II, I'm not 100% sure on that. But there is something on the Apple app that you can connect to your phone, called Shutter Count, I think it's called. I think you have to pay a little bit of money for it though. I think it's about £10 or something like that. And that works with all the recent new cameras, the mirrorless cameras, to get a shutter count. Because I recently sold my EOS R and I had to get a shutter count readout for that particular camera, and I used that shutter count software on my iPhone, off the Apple app. It's available for Android as well, and you can connect your camera and your phone via Wi-Fi on some of the more modern cameras, and you'll be able to get your shutter count. Okay. David, I've just bought a Canon 70-200 2.8 IS USM lens, but it had no filter on it. Can anyone recommend a good UV filter to protect the lens, please? The black and white ones are good. The Sigma ones are good. The ones I would stay away from are the Hoya ones. To be honest, I don't like them. They tend to have like small bubbles or in the glass that I've noticed. I don't like the Hoya ones at all. But the black and white plus ones are really good. High quality. They're made in Germany. That's why they're good quality. And the Sigma ones, again, are good. I tend to use UV filters on the majority of my lenses to protect the front element. Sigma also brought out a WR UV protector, which is like safety glass, which means if you drop something on it, it will not shatter. The problem with a lot of these UV filters is once they've been damaged, they do shatter, and some of those pieces of glass can scratch your front element. That's something you need to be mindful of. However, saying that, I'd rather have a few scratches on my element than, let's say, something completely going through my front element. That's why UV filters are probably recommended if you want to protect your front element, because I know I've heard some horror stories of people dropping their lenses and smashing the front element, where if they had something just to take that initial knock, you'd probably save your front element, even if you got a few scratches on your front element. You know, it's not a big deal having a few odd scratches on your front element. Having a big thing going through your lens and smashing it, that's even worse. Obviously, using a lens hood is a good idea to protect your lens at all times. However, there are times where, let's say, you're walking and you bump into a branch that's sticking out, and it might just happen to go in between where the lens hood is, and then the lens hood isn't really helping you, is it? Stephen, what should I get? RF 15 to 35 2.8 USM or a RF 24 to 70 2.8 USM? I already have an RF 24 to 105 f4L. I don't know really. They're two different lenses really. Both of them are very good. 15 to 35 is going to be really good, and the 24 to 70 2.8 is going to be really good. And if you're going to be using it on full frame, the 15 to 35 is going to be fantastic for doing vlogs. You know, let's just see what Terrell's just said. If you don't mind me using my phone, I can join. Yeah, I've known quite a few people that have come on the stream using their phones. Obviously, you've got a microphone, a camera. Obviously, the battery won't last forever, but I don't mind having a conversation since I've got no one here to help me out with the live stream. So, in terms of the lenses there, the RF 15 to 35 2.8 USM lens is going to be great for vlogs and doing scenery, photography and landscapes. Is going to be great. The 24 to 70 2.8 will be great for weddings. But you'll want the 70 to 200 2.8 to go with that if you're going to do weddings. I think if you're going to do weddings, you're going to want the 24 to 70 and the 70 to 200. Full stop. Those are the two lenses you want. Whether it's EF or RF, it don't matter. You need those two lenses for weddings and portraiture. So Mark, after some advice, I have a 500mm Mark 1 and a 300 Mark II, but thinking of selling both for a 200 2.8. I have both extenders, and I'm interested to know how the 400 2.8 plus 1.4 compares to sharpness against the 500 f4. They're going to be very similar. So looks like we've got Terry coming into the stream, so I'll just pop him on. I don't know if I can hear him. Are you there, Terry?
Hello.
Hi, mate.
Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, it sounds a bit squeaky, but I can hear you.
It's a cell phone, so.
Oh, it's better. That's a lot better. So you've been on the stream quite a lot in the past, posting your questions, and it's nice to have you come on today. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Right.
There's a slight delay, though.
Is there? Okay. Because I was expecting Alan to come on, but he says he's going to be busy for an hour. So whenever he turns up, and Dan said he was going to come on, but he's a no-show as well. It's a bit boring doing it on your own sometimes. So would you like to tell us a little about yourself, Terry?
Well, I don't know what you want. I'm a beginner. I've only been using the camera for about a year.
Yeah.
I'm shooting a Canon Rebel T7 with the kit lenses.
And how are you finding those cameras, that camera and the lenses? Are you liking those cameras, those lenses?
The camera itself is a good camera. Just I'm finding it's too slow for what I want to do.
Yeah.
The 3 frames per second is not fast enough for wildlife.
Yeah. I had that many years ago when I had the 600D and I was doing 3 frames per second, and I got frustrated very quickly after buying that, and very soon I moved to the 7D with its 8 frames per second and a much better buffer in that camera. So, you know, if you can get yourself a used version of the 7D or the 7D Mark II, I think you'll be a lot happier. I don't know if you heard me then. Did you?
That's what I'm looking at doing, is saving and getting a Sigma 150 to 600 with the 7D Mark II.
Yeah, it's going to be a killer combo, that, because it's what everyone aspires to.
It's kind of hard. I'm going to have to drop out for a minute to take care of my dog.
It's all right, no problem. Thank you for coming on anyway. Right, so that was Terry, who came on briefly just to talk about what he's using. I do apologise there for everyone who was watching. It was a bit quiet there, and I did try and obviously get him to talk a little bit, but maybe there was a problem with the sound. I don't know. So Mark, after some advice, basically we were talking about the 500 millimeter Mark 1, which is a sharp lens, and he's thinking about the 300 Mark II, but thinking of selling both. I think he's got the 300 Mark II, but think of selling both the 500 and the 300 so you can afford a 400 2.8 Mark II EF lens. I have both extenders and I'm interested to know how the 400 2.8 plus 1.4 compares for sharpness against the 500 f4. It's going to be very comparable. I don't think you're going to notice much of a difference with a 1.4. With a 2 times extender, there is a bit of a difference there. You know, but I think any option you go for in the prime EF lenses are going to be fantastic. So Brian says, does anyone have experience using the RF15 to 30 STM? I have the RF16 and RF24 to 105, and I want this for landscapes using filters and a tripod and long exposures. Any comparison with the RF15 to 35 2.8, which is tempting, but I'm avoiding L lenses so far to avoid weight. I can understand that because some of the STM lenses are really light. Yeah, the STM lenses are really light, quite cheap, and do a good job. I don't have a problem with any of the STM lenses. They're just not quite as quick as the USM lenses in terms of focus speed. However, like I said, I've been using a 24 to 105 STM lens on my R6. Cost me £300 off Amazon. I paid for it in 5 installments over the course of a couple of months. And I've never had any problems with it. Is it weather sealed? No. Is weather sealing such a big issue? Providing it's not raining, not really. And you can always put a lens cover over your camera and the lens if you really are concerned about the weather. Terrell, if you're able to get some headphones, maybe that would be better. I don't know if we can try again, see if the sound's any better then, because it just seemed a long time to get some sort of response from what I said, you know. So yeah, the RF lenses are fantastic, nice and sharp, do a good job. However, don't be afraid of getting USM and STM EF lenses and adapting them, because they're a lot cheaper and you can get more for your money, really. Basically, the way I see it is you can get an RF lens or you can get 2 EF lenses. That's essentially what I think it comes down to in terms of price. And I'm talking about EF-L lenses. Now, if you take away the L lenses completely and you just want STM, the consumer plastic lenses, you'll probably be able to get 3 or 4 lenses for the price of 1 RF lens. So that's the comparison, really. And I think the dilemma that Brian's having here, that he's wanting lots of STM lenses that he can use on his camera. He's not mentioned what camera he's using, but he's avoiding L lenses for the weight. They're not that heavy. It depends on what L lens you get. You know, like a 70-200 f4 is half the weight of a 70-200 2.8. So what has Terry just said? I put dog up and some head. I think he means headphones. Right. James has said, anyone that has the Canon 50mm f1.8 Mark II, 1.4 USM, besides it being a little faster, is it really worth the upgrade? I would avoid the 1.4 USM lens. I was thinking about it myself. This is the EF lenses we're talking about. So basically, you talk about the 50mm 1.8 Mark II Nifty 50 plastic, fantastic lens, versus the older 1.4 USM EF lens. I wasn't too happy the image quality I was seeing from the 1.4 when I looked at test images, and it's only a fraction brighter from a 1.8. There's not much difference between a 1.4 and 1.8. You won't notice it. Even in the bokeh, you won't notice much of a difference. Would you notice the difference between a 1.2 and a 1.8? Barely. I'll be honest with you. When I've done some bokeh testings versus, I think I compared the Sigma 500 f4.5 versus 5.6, and I didn't notice a difference with the bokeh at all. So Terry's come back on. Let's see if we can. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know if there's still a delay or not.
Is there? I can hear you fine. What about you? Can you hear me as I'm speaking?
Yeah, I can hear you. I just don't know if there's a delay or not.
It seems fine at the moment now.
Okay.
So you said you were using a Rebel camera, yeah, and you're thinking of upgrading.
Yeah, I'm using the Rebel T7. So I have the 2 kit lenses that came with it, and then a nifty 50. That I like the camera. It's just too slow for what I'm wanting to do because I migrated towards wildlife, and the 3 frames per second is just way too slow.
Yeah. Like I was saying before, before we're having a bit of a glitch with audio, I had the 600D and I was doing aircraft shooting, and it was frustrating the hell out of me. So at some point I thought, right, I'm going to get myself a 7D, which was 8 frames per second, a much better buffer, a lot quicker, and certainly a lot more usable. Obviously, there's other cameras since that, such as the 90D, 7D Mark II. Have you considered the 90D?
I have, but from what I've seen on videos, it don't track, where the 7D Mark II tracks the subject, is what I'm seeing on videos.
Right.
So I'd rather have the subject tracking. And then if I go to the 7D Mark II, I'm only losing 4 megapixels in quality, because the T7 is 24 and the 7D Mark II is 20.
To be honest with you, they're both focus via manual, really, because obviously you're pressing the shutter and it's focusing on your subject matter.
I don't use the shutter anymore to focus.
Yeah.
I've switched to back button focus.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So I'm using a separate button to focus.
Yeah, but it's not the same as the RF cameras in terms of its tracking capabilities.
Right.
It's like you're pressing the shutter or you're pressing the back focus button to focus. It's not like a continuous tracking thing like the R7s and the R6s have, because those are a game changer in terms of the focus capabilities. So in that respect, both the 90D.
I'd like to go to the mirrorless. So right now they're just out of the price range.
Yeah. Unless you were to consider the R50.
I have looked at it, but from what I've seen, some of the stuff that it just ain't there. It's more because I shoot all manual mode, and what I'm seeing is some of the stuff that I just ain't there. Yeah. It's more geared towards people that want to make videos.
Well, I have seen it's got 15 frames per second electronic. I think it'll probably have 6 frames per second first curtain. There is confusion out there because I have gone onto the Canon website, and it actually states mechanical. It's not got a mechanical shutter. So I don't know why they put mechanical in there. First curtain is like a in between. It's not really a proper mechanical shutter.
Mechanical, yeah.
I think the biggest thing for me is what I've seen is the buffer gives you 7 raw, and then you have to wait. So it's not going to be super fast, even if it can do 15 frames per second electronic. I would probably suggest the R10, if I'm honest with you, because it's not going to be quite as fast or as expensive as the R7, obviously. But I think 23 frames per second is more than acceptable. electronic, and I think the mechanical side of it is, I think it's 10, something like that, which is the same as the 90D as well as the 7D.
Yeah, I'm weighing. Do I get just a body and use my lenses right now, which I'm having issues with the 75-300 with a lot of purpling in the pictures, or do I get like the 7D Mark II and a used 150 to 600 Sigma lens, and make a kit that way? You know, to give me a better lens and a better body.
I think you'd be a lot happier with the 90D over the 7D Mark II. I've owned both. I know both of them. I used the you see, I started off with the 80D, and then I moved on to the 90D because it came down in price. And then I bought the 7D Mark II because everyone were raving about it, saying it's fantastic, it's great, blah, blah, blah. And when I got it, I just thought I preferred the 90D. Now, the 7D Mark II focuses slightly faster than the 90D, but the 90D is no slouch either, you know. And obviously, it's more megapixels, 32 versus 20. So, to me, I'd recommend the 90D over the 7D Mark II because the 7D Mark II is old technology. The 90D was supposed to be. There was talk of the 7D Mark III coming out, and I think what Canon did is they combined the 7D Mark III with a new 80D release, which was the 90D, and combined both of them into one camera because they didn't want to fork out more investment into a new 7D Mark III camera when you've got the digital mirrorless cameras on the horizon coming through. And I think that's where they were thinking, and that's why they never released the 7D Mark III in the first place. As for the lens you talk about, the 150 to 600, if you're not going to use it on a mirrorless camera, you're going to be really happy with it. It's only if you upgrade in the future to a mirrorless camera, you might get a bit disappointed with it because there has been issues of pulsing going off at shorter focal distances. There's many videos on YouTube.
Yeah, I've seen those videos. I'm kind of hoping by the time if I do go to mirrorless, that Sigma has figured that out and released a firmware update for it.
Yeah. Well, thing is, Tamron said they brought out a good firmware update, and it didn't really help that lens either. I'm thinking that in the pipeline, Sigma is talking to Canon because there's some positive vibes coming out of Canon at the moment because they've actually authorized a third-party company to make why it's only manual focus, not autofocus lens. But
right, I've seen that, and from what I understand, yes, it's manual, but it's communicating with the body, telling the body what the f-stop is versus getting the double zeros. Yeah.
Well, all these third-party companies actually did that, and obviously Canon sent a cease and
desist to them.
Yeah. However, there's one company, I think, I can't remember the company, the firm name, because I mentioned it earlier on, where they've actually formally given permission. Canon has actually given permission to a third-party company to make a manual focus lens. It's not the fact that it's a manual focus lens that's the news. It's the fact that Canon has given permission. Now, if that translates into other firms such as Sigma and Tamron getting a license in the future, I think because they're talking, we may see RF autofocus lenses eventually coming.
It's a start in the right direction.
Yeah. Rather than them having a blanket refusal, they've allowed one firm, and it means, in my opinion, that at some point Canon will relent a little bit, because I think there's a lot of public pressure on Canon at the moment to allow them to do it. You can understand why Canon want to protect their patents.
I don't know how it is in the UK, but here in the US, if they don't protect it, they lose it. So they have to protect it.
Yeah. Well, that makes perfect sense. You know, so yeah, I've just seen a message from Dan. He says he's going to be another hour. What the hell? You know, when you plan these things and then people that turn up can be a bit frustrating sometimes because
life happens.
Yeah. Because I ain't done one for about a month now, maybe 2 months. And it's always a challenge to get people to come on, you know, and convince them. You would have thought out of 23,000 Facebook members, you'd have 10 people wanting to come on and have a chat about photography. So we've got a new person in the chat called Bash Brothers Overland saying good evening. And people like Sigma. I think the reason people like Sigma is it's cheap in comparison to Canon equipment. I know Sigma have brought out their own Sigma cameras in the past and they didn't take off. But I've always used Sigma glass, even back in the days of 1998 when I was using a 75 to 300 macro lens, and it was really sharp, you know, because I know you mentioned you've got, is it a 70 or 75 to 300, and there's a lot of
75 to 300 kit lens that came with the T7.
Yeah,
So
there's a lot of chromatic
Mark II or something like that
aberration.
lens. Yes, it does. Bad, especially at the 300 millimeter range.
Yeah. Yeah, I've used a lot of those Canon 70 to 300 lenses in the past, the old ones, you know, and I didn't like them. I just thought they were soft, rubbish, if I'm honest, crap. And I went over to Sigma, you know, because they were offering a 70 to 300 with macro functionality, and it was a lot sharper. Obviously, Canon bring out other lenses that are sharper, but you've got to spend a lot more money on those, you know. I think there's a 70 to 300 nano lens they brought out. Was it not last year or the year before? And it was £500. It's a lot of money, but it was absolutely sharp. So Bash Brothers Overland says, I've got the EFS 55 to 250. Yeah, it's a good lens. I actually use that myself. I think it's f4.5 to 5.6 and gives you an effect focal length of 400 millimeters on APS-C cameras such as Rebels. And it's a very sharp lens, you know. I would certainly recommend that because you can pick that up for probably £200 to £300, and it'd be a lot better than your 75 to 300 that you've got, you know, and you can pick that up quite cheap. What I actually had was the 10 to 18, 18 to 55, and the 55 to 250 as my trio of lenses. So you've got your 10 to 18 for doing vlogs and wide angle shots and property photography, that sort of thing. Then you've got your 18 to 55, which is your standard walk around lens. And then as a wildlife lens, you've got your 55 to 250. When you take into account your crop factor, you're getting near enough 400 millimeters. And all three of those are a good combo to have with any sort of, you know, APS-C camera. You know, have you considered any of those?
Me personally, no. I have and could talk with a guy. He's out of town on business right now. He's trying to sell his 70 to 200 Sigma f2.8. It's the first gen of it, so it ain't image stabilized. But he's only wanting 200 for it. So I'm assuming sounds like a good deal.
Yeah.
And he's local, so I can throw it on the body and check to make sure it works before I pay for it.
Yeah. It sounds like a good deal, that 2.8.
Yep.
You know, I certainly would consider that. Because Bash Brothers Overland says I'm using the T6S. I've got the 10-22, which is an older lens, the 51.8, and the kit 18-55. The 10-22, as far as I remember, had a little bit of chromatic aberration on it, which sort of put me off it. I was looking at the, I think there was a Tokina similar sort of lens that came out. I was looking at that as well. But again, that had well-known chromatic aberration in it as well. But the kit lens 18-55, depending on which version you get, because there's like 3 versions that they brought out for that particular.
Yeah, they're on the 3rd rendition of that lens. I have the 3rd one. Actually, that one actually ain't that bad. It's image stabilized, and I haven't noticed the chromatic aberration like I do on the 75-300.
No, there's not a lot in it. I think a lot of the kit lenses have come a long way in the past 10 years. They're no longer considered garbage, you know, for taking images. They're really good at what they're doing. And I think you're not going to be disappointed. Are you going to get 10% better with an L lens? Yes, you will. But that's where I see it. 10 to 20% image quality difference on L lenses versus kit lenses and non-L lenses. That's your difference. And sometimes you've got to ask yourself, is it worth spending £1,500 extra to get 10 or 20% more? Sometimes it's not worth it. But Basher Brothers Overland says, yes, I hardly use the kit lens. Well, let's see what else he said. Mine's the 3rd gen as well. So he's got the same lens as you, Terry.
Yep.
Yeah, those kit lenses are really good at what they do. They're cheap. And I made this point before along in some of the other streams that if you drop one of your kit lenses, you're not going to have a heart attack, are you? Because you can
because they're cheap to replace.
Yeah. Put it in context. I dropped a 70-200 2.8 L lens. Fortunately, it survived on concrete because it's well made. But you don't want to drop a lens on concrete if you can help it. And I think I would have a bit of a heart attack if I dropped my 300 2.8, since it cost me $3,000 to buy, you know, even used, you know, brand new. I think it was about 6,500. So it depends how much you're prepared to spend. Basher Brothers Overland says the work I do, the 10-22 millimeter for real estate property photography. Yes. If you can tell us what the aperture of that, because I can't remember, but I think it wasn't a 2.8, 10-22. But when you're doing wide angle and real estate photography, you do need a wide angle lens. I don't think the aperture comes into it, because most of the time when you're doing property photography, you're going to be using f8 most of the time. But if you're ever considered a career in property photography, you're going to need to get a wide angle lens to do that work. So he says it's a 3.5 to 4.5, but more than likely, I guess you're going to be using that f8 most of the time. There are some people who buy these specialty tilt shift lenses. The reason they buy those is because when you do a vertical line, it makes the vertical line straight. If you've ever seen a wide angle lens, generally speaking, buildings look like they're going like that at an angle. But the tilt shift images, tilt shift lenses try and keep the vertical lines as straight as they can. It's not 100% perfect, but that's why some people do buy those. So Basher Brothers Overland says, I use it at f4 to f8. when shooting. Yeah, proper photography is an art. You're going to need a tripod most of the time. But I used to do,
and you're going to use a large f-stop number to have everything in focus, try getting everything in the focal plane.
yeah, well, you're trying to sell it. Yeah. You want everything to be, the depth of field to be as much as possible.
Yep.
But if you're doing any sort of night shooting, you're going to have to put that on a tripod and use a remote timer. What's great about using mobile phones these days, because what you used to have to do is get like a shutter release and buy a special thing that attaches to the camera and then press it. But even that, because there's a cable attached to the camera, you can get a bit of camera shake. But now with like mobile phones, you know, for some of the modern cameras, you can actually use your phone as the shutter release and just press on your phone. And that way you get no sort of shutter shock, and you'll get a good and nice and sharp image. So that's what's good with modern technology that can achieve it. It means you don't have to buy an extra piece of kit. You can just use your phone, providing your camera has Wi-Fi capabilities. You know, you can use your phone to do like a remote shutter release. Basher Brothers Overland says, I line up verticals, fix the shift if needed in Photoshop, I think he's referring to. Sometimes it's not always possible, but I know there's various software options in Photoshop that allow you to adjust things. I always prefer, because a lot of people talk about Photoshop and I can do this and I can do that. I can reduce the noise. I can do this, that, and the other. I always think it's better to do it in camera first than actually go into Photoshop, because are you a photographer or are you a Photoshop artist then? You know? Band of Brothers Overland says tripod and level. And I think he's using a 2-second timer. And I think that's essentially what he's doing for his portraiture. Is someone trying to come on? I think someone's trying to come onto the stream, but his device is not connected. So, Phil, if you're trying to come on, try and sort your camera out. For some reason, you're not coming on. Bashov Brothers Overland says, I'll try to get it right in camera. Well, that's the best thing to do, because it's always going to cost you time in Photoshop. And sometimes you haven't got the time to muck about. Sometimes you just need, if you're doing work for clients and you want to give them, you know, the picture straight away, sometimes you haven't got time to go on Photoshop and spend an hour or two doing various settings and modifying it and changing things. Don't get me wrong, I've done artistic imagery on Photoshop myself, but it can take a long time. I remember going for a job interview where they wanted to see what I could do on Photoshop, and basically I took a model and different backgrounds and made it quite artistic. You know, and I tried to emphasize what I can do on Photoshop, but essentially I'm more of a photographer than a Photoshop artist, because, you know, it depends, you know, how much work you want to put in, really, you know, into a project. Bash Brothers Overland says, deadlines, you are right. Yeah, because obviously with mirrorless cameras, you know, you've got fast shutters on those that can do like 30-40 frames per second. You know, do you want to edit all those images though? That's the problem. Because if you've got 200 images after pressing the shutter for a few seconds, because that's what mirrorless is. It is that quick, that silent.
You know, on what he's doing, I would go into the firmware and actually limit the number of shots you can take with it. That way you don't have all them images, because you don't need all of them. Yeah.
Well, that's why I'm not too fond of the R6 Mark II, because it does 40 frames per second. You know, the R6 can do 20, and 20 is more than enough. You know, how many do you actually need? The way I
think the way I see the 40 comes in is you got an eagle diving for a fish or something like that. You want that feed so you capture the moment it grabs the fish and leaves the water. But most of the time you don't need that.
Well, just think about it. Back in the day, people had the 7D with 8 frames per second, and people were able to use that. The 90D has 10. You know, I think when I heard rumors of the R1 that can do 200 frames per second, I just don't get it. Do you really need 200 frames per second? You know,
I think the R3 actually can do 130 or 150 frames in a special mode, in a special burst mode.
I think it's limited to 40 or something like that.
But to get all them out, you have to use the Canon software.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people just download it all onto, you know, not Photoshop. What's the other one called? Lightroom. That's it, Lightroom.
That's why I use Lightroom.
But 99% of the time, you're going to be deleting most of those images. And, you know, someone else has just mentioned sports. Yeah, obviously you need a lot of frames per second. But I don't really think you need more than 10, you know. Like the R6 can do 12 mechanical and 20 electronic. You know, the R6 Mark II has just come out with that can do 40 electronic and 12 mechanical. The R10, because you mentioned that does 23 electronic, and I think that does 12 mechanical or 10 mechanical, something like that. But then they've decided to get rid of the mechanical shutter altogether in the R8 and the R50, which I don't agree with, because I think a mechanical shutter does reduce your rolling shutter that you get. Now, you might not think it's a big deal, rolling shutter, but if you're taking fast images of tennis players, golfers,
you get warping of the.
You're going to get warping. You know, that racket's going to warp. The club's going to wrap around. The baseball bat's going to look like it's weird, or the ball will look like it's a rugby ball. You know, so these things do happen, and that's why the mechanical shot is quite important.
Unfortunately, if you're wanting a lower priced full frame camera, you have to cut costs somewhere. So they assume taking the mechanical out is part of that reducing cost.
Yeah, like Bash Brothers just said, rolling shutter is bad. Yeah, and I think a lot of people underestimate this. And something I've just recently found out, actually, about the R8 and the R50 is when you use wide apertured lenses, the bokeh looks like cat's eyes. So normally when you look at bright lights and the background is completely out of focus because it's got something like a 1.8 or a f2 aperture, you get round bokeh, right, in your lights. Now, what actually happens with these newer cameras with no mechanical shutter is you'll notice that the circular highlights in the background will look like it's like a cat eye rather than a circle, and that's a known effect of the electronic shutter. That's not been highlighted because obviously you may be aware that DP review is going to be shut down shortly because Amazon's decided to get rid of them. However, Chris mentioned this in one of his reviews on YouTube that I watched, and he actually stated that if you put a wide apertured lens on, the electronic shutter isn't as great as everyone thinks it is, and that is one of the negatives that you will have with no mechanical shutter. So I don't think anyone knows about that or has been made aware of that.
first time I've heard of it. Interesting.
Yeah. So the rolling shutter is still an issue. Now, certain cameras have the rolling shutter isn't a big deal on like the R3 and probably the R1, because its readout data that comes out of the camera in terms of the electron shutter is really quick. But on other cameras like the R7, the readout is a lot slower. Now, as you probably know, these sensors read the data from top to bottom. Now, someone posted an image on the Facebook group where you could see a bird that was flying, had the wings open, and then there was like a puddle with a reflection, and you saw the bird, and the reflection showed the bird to have the wings closed. So at the top, you've got the same bird you're looking at with the wings wide open, and this is the effect of rolling shutter. When it gets down to the actual puddle, you've seen the very same bird with the wings closed, and that looks weird. And
the one I've seen that really looks weird is for a hummingbird in flight, where the wings actually look like a number 8 with the rolling shutter.
Really? That's interesting. So I think rolling shutter, I know I've banged on a lot about it today, because one thing, it was frustrating me with all these YouTuber reviews, such as your Jared Paul and your Tony Northrup, your ordinary filmmaker, were talking about and banging on about these new cameras are fantastic, great. No one was addressing rolling shutter, and I thought, this is really weird. Because that first curtain shot, you see, Canon in their own words say rolling shutter is eliminated by the first curtain shutter. However, the first curtain shutter is limited to 6 frames per second. When you've got a camera that can do 40 frames per second electronic, it don't make sense, because if you're going to get rolling shutter in that electronic at 40 frames per second, but the first curtain shutter is limited to 6, but that eliminates rolling shutter, what's the point? 6 frames per second ain't quick enough for fast moving subjects. I think 10 is the minimum I'd want to take fast action photography, whether it be sports, wildlife, aircraft, air shows, hummingbirds flying at very fast speeds. You're going to be wanting to use that 40 frames per second in the R8. But if you're limited to 6 because you're concerned about rolling shutter, it doesn't seem a good camera to me. And that's why I did a video. I put out a video saying that. A lot of people were slating me, saying, "Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. Rolling shutter isn't a big issue." Really? Look into it, and then you realize it is an issue in certain circumstances.
The only creator I've seen on YouTube that actually even brings it up is Jared Polin, and he actually shows images of like the golf swing where the golf club is actually bent.
Yeah. In
some of them.
To be honest with you, when he first brought out his video review, because Canon flew him out somewhere, he tested the camera, said, "Oh, it's great, it's fantastic, blah, blah, blah." He didn't even mention rolling shutter. DP review, Tony Northrup, didn't mention rolling shutter. And I got the feeling they were being a little bit biased, because they've been pushed by Canon to look at this camera. And obviously, to me, it's a biased point of view, because they've been given something. And quite often they get freebies from Canon. Let's face it. I know for a fact Jared Polin got about 90 grand in cameras, so he could donate that camera equipment to various schools in the US. But that just shows how much pull he has with Canon, And you have to ask yourself, can you be impartial if you've got a good relationship with Canon? Because I suspect if you got Canon's latest camera and you slated it because it's rolling shutter, Canon wouldn't be so keen to give you another go at the Apple, if you know what I mean. So, you know, that's something that frustrates me with some of these YouTubers, where they're actually they've got an incentive really to give a positive point of view of a particular camera. It's very rarely they'll slate a camera for something. I don't think I've ever seen a video where they've actually slated a camera for a particular reason. And from what I could tell, the majority of these YouTubers are not being 100% honest, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm just going to put it out there that it's my own personal opinion, and I'm going to say allegedly in this recording.
No.
So, you know.
He wasn't, the video I seen, he wasn't sliding the camera, but he was just pointing out that it's there, be aware of it.
Yeah. But they don't really talk about it as a negativity, do they? Have you ever noticed that? Like, you know, like the R3 has very little rolling shutter, but the reason for that is it has a very, very fast readout from the sensor. And I suspect when global shutters come into cameras, rolling shutter won't be an issue anymore. I think it's a lot lesser in the backside illuminated sensors that have obviously been put in newer cameras. However, when the global shutter comes, you know, instead of having a readout that does this, it just goes like that.
The whole thing.
Yeah, and rolling shutter will be a thing of the past. But don't expect those cameras to be cheap.
No, they're not going to be. Not for a while.
That sensor will be expensive, you know. I'm in two minds whether they will bring the global shutter into the R1 or not, because it might be too soon, you know. Because a lot of YouTubers have been doing April Fool videos recently. I don't know if you've watched any of them. Claiming
I've seen a few.
Claiming the R1 will be a 102 megapixel camera. As I mentioned, 200 frames per second. You could say I fell for it.
And that day, anything I watch on YouTube, I take it as an April Fool's joke.
Right.
Because of the day it is.
Then again, Jared Pollan did come out and say it's going to be 45 megapixels. He didn't say it was 102 megapixels.
Right.
Which it does annoy me when some of these YouTubers get their information off Canon rumors and they get it wrong. You know, there's quite a few of them have got it wrong quite a few times, and I think it can be quite annoying when you sort of relying on the information they're giving out. I'd rather that they just wait until it's been confirmed by Canon, then do a video about it, rather than go off Canon rumors and then get it wrong and make them look like idiots, because that's what happens a lot. I don't know if you've noticed that.
Sometimes they get it right, sometimes they don't. And that's the rumor. You got to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah. Yeah, because sometimes I think it's just clickbait videos they're doing, you know. Quite often I'll see these thumbnails, you know, and it's all about clicks. They're not interested in presenting the accurate information that everyone wants to know about something. People don't want to know rumors, they want to know facts, you know. But that's one of those things, isn't it?
And sometimes you wonder, these ones that do the rumors that you know get cameras from Canon and that, do they have their hands on the actual camera? But because of NDAs, they can't discuss it, so they go and do the rumors, knowing it's not right.
Yeah. I think it can be frustrating for people when they want to know about whether they should wait to buy something or not. And then you've got YouTubers that put out videos out there saying this camera's this and that. And then you click on it and then you find out what the thumbnail suggested it was talking about. There's nothing in that video talking about what you wanted to know. And you feel like you've been led down the garden path Like, I've wasted my time watching that stupid video, clicking on your stupid thumbnail. What? For what? You know, wasting
Been
my
there,
time.
done that.
You know, I know ordinary filmmakers done that a lot of times. I've watched his video. He had a thumbnail of lots of Canon lenses. It said possible new lenses coming out. So I watched it, and there was nothing in that video about any new lenses that were coming out. And I thought, I've just wasted my time for nothing. You know, you're just going to annoy people rather than just wait until Canon releases some information, then do a video about it. You know, it just seems to me it's all about clicks, not giving actual factual information out to people that want to know about the news. End of the day, news is news, isn't it? It's not conjecture or opinions or pie in the sky. Asteroid's going to hit the Earth. You know, you want to know if bread's bread, you want to know what color is the bread, don't you? You don't want to know, well, the bread might be flying through the sky, or it's got some sort of antimatter device that allows it to fly from the supermarket to your house. You know, I'm just making silly things up out, and that's what a lot of these YouTubers are doing. You know,
From what I understand, they get, whether they're monetized, they get paid by the click, not how long people actually watch their video. So the more clicks they get, the more they make.
And they also got these sponsors, haven't they? And I guess if I said Squarespace to you, you might get a bit annoyed. Because I don't know if you've ever watched Mr. Tony Northrup. I think he mentioned Squarespace in one of his videos, and I can't believe I actually counted how many times he said it, but 21 times in the same video. And I thought, mention at the beginning, mention at the end, fair enough. But 21 times, are you kidding me? You know, so I don't like to watch a lot of these big YouTubers because I just think it's
at that point, it's more of a commercial for Squarespace than what he's actually trying to show.
Yeah. Because someone mentioned it to me in a previous stream. Oh, I'm sick and tired of hearing Mr. Tony say, I'm leaving Canon, I'm going to Sony. And then a few months later, I've gone back to Canon. And then after that, I'm going to Nikon now. And it's like, why? What are you playing at? You know, people don't come to your videos to see that. They want to know about a particular brand, and they want to know about you know, what's coming out. Is the lens good? Is the camera good? You know, they don't want to hear about you. Oh, I'm quitting Canon and I'm going there and, you know, coming back. You know, I think people get sick of it. So Bash Brothers Overland says it's all advertising. I totally agree. You know, when a YouTuber starts talking about his sponsor over and over again, it just turns me off. I want to go to another video. I don't want to watch it anymore. And that's what I tend to do. You know, when they give you cameras, it's easy to switch. Well, when you've got lots of money, it's easy to switch. And obviously, these big YouTubers have got lots of money. You know, even Jared Pollan said, I think he did a video last year, how I made $1 million. You know, after many years on YouTube, he's obviously earned lots of money. You know, but I get the feeling it's all about that, basically making money. You know, not really giving non-biased opinions. You know, we've all got a bias, no matter whether it be what brand or what type of camera or what type of lens you go for. Everyone's got a biased point of view. The problem with the big YouTubers is they don't give a balanced point of view. It's always, you know, geared to promoting something. I've never seen the big YouTubers actually negatively say, don't buy this lens, it's crap, don't buy it. I've never seen them do that, ever. What they'll tend to do is say, well, it's not too great at doing this, but it's good at doing that, and it's really good at that, and here's the affiliate link, and you should go and watch it, you know. And we seem to have a guest, someone that we haven't seen for a very long time. Is his camera working today?
No, my camera's never working. You know that. Oh, wait, no, I'm not Alan. My camera always works.
Well, Alan was supposed to be coming on, you know. He said that about 2 hours ago now.
I guess his camera doesn't work.
Yeah, he said an hour ago. So we've got Terry, who sometimes puts comments in the comments box. He's finally come on today.
Nice to meet you, man.
Hello.
You know, that's Terry there. I kept calling him Terrell.
Yeah, my name's Terrell, but I go by Terry. It's easier for people.
Yeah.
Easy enough. Even I can remember that for the next 3 minutes.
Yeah. So I've been talking about some questions that have been coming up, as well as the R8 and R50. I'm not impressed with both of those cameras, if I'm honest with you. And the April Fool videos that a lot of YouTubers have been putting out about the R1.
I didn't see any. I usually stay away from any kind of link on April 1st, just in case.
Yeah, because Gerald Poland was probably the most sensible of the lot, saying it was going to be 45 megapixels. But Alan's mate, ordinary filmmaker, is saying it's going to be 102 megapixels.
Mm-hmm.
At 200,
yeah,
200
like we talked about yesterday, 200 frames a second, I think that is pretty ridiculous and unrealistic. Yeah. I can't see 102 megapixels. Like I said yesterday, if they do it right with a modern solid state drive as a buffer, your memory card doesn't really matter.
Oh my God, look who it is. Look who it is. This has got to be the April Fool week.
Bear with me, I'm coming.
You're coming, are you? Didn't you say you're going to be on about 2 hours ago or 3 hours
Took
ago?
you long enough, you lazy bum.
Well, it was in the middle of church, and yeah.
Wine.
Put my son to sleep. So, how's everybody doing? We're gonna do a vlog style today, so I'm on my phone, but I've got a Manfrotto Pixie with a phone mount on here, so we're gonna go vlog style. And I'm just getting my camera out of the truck, and we're here at my mom's house here in McAllen, Texas, and there's a little canal out here in the back that a lot of birds like to migrate to, so we're gonna take our camera out there and see if we can find anything. It's rather hot today. It is 91 degrees, which would be about...
Hey, you can send some of that my way. I'm only at 18 degrees.
18?
Oh, right.
Damn, I at least got 72.
72, oh man, that would be nice.
72 is nice. I can do stuff outside, you know. I'm not, even me as a fat bastard, I'm not melting away. 91 is definitely Daniel Indoor Day.
And I was looking for my mic cable right now, and I could not find it. So it is rather windy at times. So if my audio clips, do apologize.
The audio is not the problem, my friend. Audio is just fine. It's the video.
Yeah, it's a bit
jerky. I'm on an iPhone 14 Pro Max.
Apparently that sucks more than my iPhone 13. Because all you get is one pixel, one frame every 3 seconds. And I'm not even kidding.
Bash your brother.
Yeah. Hey, my Samsung ain't even that bad.
Well, I'm also on the front-facing camera. The rear-facing camera.
Yeah, but still, there's no video. This is more like a stream of still pictures.
Yeah, it's got laggy video.
But the sad part, as professional as we are, there's far more YouTubers and vloggers who do just this and get way more views than they should.
Yeah, but they
Just
actually
by
have a
doing
video.
this right here.
I don't think you understand just how laggy your video is.
Yeah, it's like still images.
Is
Yes.
it really?
Literally every 2 or 3 seconds you get
Oh,
a different
wow.
picture. There is no video whatsoever. It's just pictures bouncing from one picture to the other.
Yeah, it's like
Yeah, it
three
looks like a
frames.
That
time
might
lapse.
also be the bad reception over here. Not to get all conspiracy-ish, but you know, there is a giant water tower right behind me that does mess with my reception.
Yeah, well,
So hopefully over here out in the open, it'll be a little bit better. So my audio does not lag at all?
No, your audio is pretty good. How is it in the UK? Does the UK get good
Okay.
audio, Paul, from him?
yeah, it seems fine, audio-wise, but it's a bit laggy.
I'm getting you guys pretty well, and see my my chat video here is completely lossless. That's weird.
Yeah, not
So-
what we're getting from you.
Well,
You know the old, like, late 1990s bootleg DVDs?
yeah.
That's about the picture
Yeah.
quality we're getting.
So, Basher Brothers Overland, are you new to the Facebook group by any chance?
And yes, I used to be German.
Used to be.
Well, now I'm both. Now I'm American and German.
He's a dual citizen.
That is a loud dog.
Yes, it is.
Sorry, guys. So, what were we talking about before I rudely interrupted anybody with my
Your inability to
glorious
show up on
presence?
time.
April Fool's video about the R1.
I will admit that early in the day, I didn't even realize that it was the first, and I saw a couple of videos posted, and I was like, "What? Okay, let's see this." And then it was just way too good to be true. And then I saw another thing about another one about a lens, and I was just like, "Okay, no, this is just a joke." And then I saw multiple videos posted, and then it was just okay. Now I remember. But they were quite speculative.
Yeah.
In each. Did you notice the variety? How everybody had completely different specs and everything else for it. New batteries and new cards, and everybody came up with all kinds of different stuff. You know, it was interesting to see how creative everybody else could be with trying to come up with something.
Well, I think Jared Pollan was being a bit more speculative.
I think Jared Pollan was probably more on the nose to what it'll actually be.
Yes.
Because you know, guys like Ordinary Filmmaker, he's just going off of CanonRumors.com's website. Jared Pollan works with Canon, like with their representatives face to face. He's testing the new R8 right now. R8's not available, but he's using it, testing it right now, and it looks really good. And I'll admit that I may have been folding to the dark side, and I'm looking at getting either the R8 or the R, and seeing how they do. I do like the image quality coming out of the R. You know, it still reminds me of the older classic Canon colors. It does seem a little over sharp, but it's 30 megapixels. So I don't really think that, you know, I think somebody brought up a discussion the other day about the R1 or R3, about its megapixels. And, you know, I think that the sweet spot right in there is where Canon has it, just between, because the R3 is, what, 24, 26?
20.
Between 20 32 to 36 megapixels, I think, is a good sweet spot for where we're at right now, in order to keep the capabilities, buffers, and other specifications from getting too out of hand. Like one of them was like 12K video. Who in the hell needs 12K video? Nobody uses 8K video now. It's hard enough to get people to watch 4K video. And, you know, we're always shooting for the moon, yet we can't see past the clouds.
Well, that was the Ordinary Filmmaker, your mate, wasn't it, that said 12K?
Yeah.
You know.
But even still, you know, hell, all of the other, the R5 II, the R5C, the new C700 II, and are all going to be boasting 8K sensors. I think the R6 is 6K, but they're doubling up every time a new iteration is coming out, and I'm not sure that it necessarily needs to, because they're overkilling on specs. And one thing that I noticed Ordinary Filmmaker did point out is that the faster things get, the memory capability has to be able to keep up. And if they keep using these outlandish specifications, super high megapixels and frame rates with extreme write speed necessities, then you know, memory cards are going to cost half as much as a camera, and nobody's going to want to buy that.
You go away from memory cards, and they put NVMe drives right in the camera, and you'll have to download them.
See, I think
through the camera.
That should, I really would love that idea to be able to build a just a solid state drive right in. You know, actually Hasselblad does that. So Hasselblads and some Leicas do that, but that's why those cameras are also outrageously expensive. So there are cameras that do that to a degree, and even some of the Sony newer full frame cameras are doing that as well. But it seems to be like it's a corner niche of a market that you know, with great camera gear comes great cost.
Yeah.
The market will always be there.
Have you not thought that the removal of the mechanical shutter is a big deal, though?
See, I think that they're still moving too fast. We just got rid of the mirror, and albeit, yes, it was a good thing. I mean, the principles of any engineering and mechanics is that the less moving parts something has, the more efficiently and easier it works, and the less likely it is to break down. So eliminating a mirror does give you some more leeway. However, now you're entirely dependent on an EVF with another screen and everything, and all the electronics that go to that have to be functional enough not to fail, whereas a mirror is actually very easy to replace, and is very unlikely to fail for an extended period of time. Whereas if one electronic feature goes wrong in a much more modern camera, the likelihood is that the entire thing will probably be inoperable as well. Whereas like my 5D Mark II, the ports don't work, one of the buttons stopped working, and you know, the screen starts flickering when I push down on it too hard. So you know, I've been rough with it, but it still works. It still shoots great pictures, great video. Nothing's wrong with the autofocus. I can use flash, meter bracket, everything. But it's just been beat up. Now, could you say that for the same as if it was a R6 or an R5? Hell, even the R3. R3 is pretty rugged, but you know, I just don't think that because, and look at the weight of some of these things. I think that just the weight alone, carrying an older DSLR with much more mechanical and heavier internals, does actually give it more durability than, say, making it light and giving it just the same shell, basically.
That's actually something I always worried about if I ever go mirrorless. Those cameras' bodies are tiny. I'm not sure if they will be comfortable to use in comparison to what I'm using now. They're skinny, they're small. It feels like a compact camera, or they look like they would feel like a compact camera.
Yeah.
I've been spending a lot of time looking at a different lens on a different system for Olympus. And their cameras are incredibly small in comparison. It's like it's got, your pinky can't rest on at the bottom of it.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm worried about just not having enough room to put my hands on it and keep all the fingers in contact.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's too tiny. I could never hold that properly without a battery grip.
Yeah, well, that's the big disappointment with the R7. Canon said they won't make one for it. Yeah,
that's why I would never ever buy one. It's impossible.
Yeah, and especially like I have huge hands. This is a 6D. This is a 6D Mark I, and this is about as small as a full frame camera from a DSLR that they have made, and it is just pushing. I have huge hands, and the smaller Rebels, the T7, the T100, the T5, they were all just, it felt like a toy.
Yep.
And then
I remember.
Yeah. So going that, and a lot of it is novelty. Everything has a touch flippy screen now, so that's a huge selling point to a lot of things. And that's, I've noticed is a lot of people are trying to offload and sell their 5D Mark IV simply because the screen doesn't rotate.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it.
I mean, it's still the same touchscreen, just because you can't flip it around, which is just bonkers.
Yep, agreed.
I will say that having an articulating touchscreen is nice, and it does have its uses. However, the Mark IV is a absolutely perfectly capable camera for almost anything that you would need. Yeah. And even today, even if you were to buy it used in good condition or a brand new one, they still selling them brand new. There's really not much that you wouldn't be able to do confidently.
Agreed.
But I think we're missing a 30 megapixel camera from Canon.
And that's the same sensor that's in the R already.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm thinking about. I'm most likely going to wait till next year for the R1 and see what it's actually going to be. At that point, I might make the jump just because, like the R3, the body has the professional body size again, so I can actually use it without having one or two fingers hanging, in limbo the whole time.
Are you still planning on splurging for the R1 as soon as it breaks?
I'm not sure if I splurge as soon as it breaks, or if I'm gonna look at it first and see what reviews are once it's out, and then I might see if I buy it or if I wait for an R1 Mark II.
Well, Jared,
right now what I'm shooting is still.
Sorry, guys,
Welcome back.
I had to drop off. Sorry, I had to drop off for a minute. My earphones were died, and my phone was about to die. I had to get power.
Yeah, it's all right. But yeah, I will see if I buy the R1 right away, or if I hold off and see what they're going to learn and improve, and possibly hold up for an R1 Mark II before I jump on that.
Well, Jared put a video out insinuating that the R1 might be marketed at 6,500, and
that's fine.
And they will drop the R3 by 1,500.
Yep. That's fine. At that point, I would even consider maybe getting both to have a backup body again. Especially if I can find an R3 at that point used because somebody's upgrading to an R1. You know, I don't mind a used R3 as a backup.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the R6. That's lost about £1,000 in terms of value because the R6 has come out, Mark
Yep.
II.
Yep,
Yeah.
makes sense. I mean, that's what happened to the 5D series. Every time the new model came out, the previous one just plummeted, which was great for everybody who was a semi-pro and just wanted to go full frame. And all of a sudden, they could snatch up like the
Yeah.
second latest model for a pretty good deal.
Alan's signal seemed to be a bit better for a minute.
Yeah, look at
Exactly.
that. It's actually moving.
Uh,
Not well, but it's moving.
Hey. Oh, really? Yeah. Hey, how about that?
Ooh, look at that picture quality all of a sudden.
Hey.
That pink shirt.
It's
I mean,
okay.
who's the photographer, right?
It's okay, Alan. You're still ugly.
Yeah.
Love your brother.
Love you too. So, hey, Dan, I was going to ask you, what's the shutter count on your 1DX?
About 270,000.
270? Okay.
Yep.
Are they
And
rated
how
to 500,000?
you done?
Are they rated to about 500,000, those shutters?
I think so. It's about 500,000.
It is. Yeah. And then,
Yeah.
but that's only what the factory warranty will cover up to. So anything, I've seen some, well, almost to $1 million. I've seen one that was posted the other day on B&H that was still in good condition, had 739,000.
Yep. I might be blind jumping and sending it off to Canon soon to get a new shutter installed, just in case Canon at some point is going to stop servicing the 1DX Mark II.
Yeah.
So I'd rather get a new shutter put in now, and one of the dials is giving me some issues, so I want to have that replaced. And then I'm pretty sure it will still be a many, many years well-to-use camera. But I figured I'm gonna go get the shutter replaced, just because at some point they're gonna stop servicing it. I'm pretty sure once the R1 comes out, I'm pretty sure the 1DX Mark II is gonna get pushed off.
I would still give it a few more years before it's finally pushed off. I mean, they just stopped servicing the
Mark
5D Mark II and 3 just in 2020. So,
you can always ask Canon when they think they will discontinue it.
Yeah, then they tell me 2026, and all of a sudden they stop in mid of 2025, and I'm screwed for not having replaced my shutter yet. So I think I'm just gonna go spend the 4-something-hundred and get a new shutter installed, and then I'm good to go.
But the thing is that with that, especially with that model, is even some independent shops are more likely to carry replacement parts as well. Yes. Secondhand, and you could always also scavenge from another camera. Say if it's damaged in another way, or battery was faulty or something, and the it's a mechanical shutter, so theoretically everything should be fine. You could parts route like an old Chevy. And
that is true.
That's another of the advantages of these DSLRs compared to mirrorless. Is I've done.
Brothers, mate. It's just special brothers saying, "All right, it's been fun. See you all. Good night."
Yeah.
Night to
Take
you,
care, bros. But yeah, that's something the DSLRs have still above the mirrorless. Technically, with a little bit of bravery and know-how, you can fix them yourself pretty well.
Yeah.
At the mirrorless, you got to send it in or you buy new. But there's not much in between.
No.
If Linus Tech Tips can repair his HDMI port on a Sony, much less, then I think we all can stop being so afraid. And actually, there's a few really great teardown channels of a guy that has done quite a few Canon DSLRs and a large number of EF mount lenses. A majority of them are all Canon Ls and some Sigmas and Tamrons. and I forget what his channel is called. I've put links in the group before, but I've watched lots of videos of his disassembly of some lenses and stuff, and they are not that hard. It's not.
If you ever see a link of him again and
assembling
think of
IKEA
it,
furniture
if you
is
can just
harder
send
than
me a link so I can save him in my YouTube watch list or something, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll post a link in the group.
Awesome, thanks, man.
I
That
still
would be
have him
great.
on my YouTube feed. Yeah, and because a lot of it is like the 70 to 200, the 2.8, the f4, and the 24 to 70. I think the other ones were a couple of other primes, and a lot of the zooms that tend to have fault that I see, especially like the 28 to 70s, tend to have a specific ribbon inside that fails for the aperture, the automatic aperture, and it's like a 20-minute fix and a $4
Really?
part.
No kidding.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of electronics are like that, man. I used to do that. I found a TV outside of my apartment one time that was sitting by the dumpster. Got curious, and I was like, "Hey, it's already in the dumpster. Let's take this apart." And I learned how to solder and repair electronics. So I ended up getting a free 40-inch LG TV,
Nice.
and spent like $60 on a couple of parts.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. I like it. I like it.
So you
know,
mentioned the R8, didn't you?
And
You're
then
thinking about buying the R8, yeah?
the R8.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I for one am excited to see how it looks, because so far the specifications seem to be a pretty heavy hitter, at least enough to keep all the haters, Sony and Nikon, off our backs. But I think that it's gonna. I think we're gonna have problems keeping it in stock. Like, especially because I think that they're waiting for right until summer hits.
Maybe.
So, yeah.
I'm not sure about it. It kind of feels and reads like a full frame Rebel wannabe.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I'm not
here's
sure.
what I think of it as the 6D line of, granted we have the R6, which isn't necessarily a predecessor, like an after to the 6D and the 6D Mark II. But I think that it's in terms of like build quality and value for the price. And I think the good thing that they've started to do is being a lot more transparent about what they've been very transparent that the R8 does not have IBIS, which is why it's also cheaper. And the fact that they've just outright said that, hey, this doesn't have IBIS, so it's cheaper, instead of us finding out the old cripple hammer way, I think it's been a good move from them. And I think that that's going to help sell more. So I actually expect to see probably a lot of the kit lens packages being sold.
It's very possible. I mean, I have no doubt that the camera will sell, especially with like an 18 to 135 or whatever the RF equivalent right now is lens for a kit package is. I'm pretty sure they will sell, no doubt about it. I'm just not sure if it was a niche or a hole that needed to be filled.
For me, there's another thing that you've not mentioned for that camera, which I don't like, and there's no mechanical shutter, and the first cutting is limited to 6 frames per second, which means rolling shutter will be an issue if you want high frame rate.
Yes, but everybody that I've seen reviews of say that it is not an issue, that Canon has
Yeah.
fixed that.
I
And
think
even
some people are playing the
a lot
rolling
of-
shutter issue a little too high. It's not
Yeah.
remotely as bad of an issue as I have read online on many areas. It is there, of course, you might see it, but if it's not being pointed out, I don't think any of us would actually really notice a lot of it.
Right,
Um,
and
Depends
to kind
on
of
the
go on
subject
that,
matter.
to
What'd you
kind
say,
of go
Paul?
on that,
It depends on the subject matter, because if you're
Yes.
photographing a tennis player, a golfer, a bird that's flying over a reflective surface, you will see it. However, if it's static subjects, you won't see it. And that's
Right.
that's my
This-
issue really with it, you know.
yeah, and it depends. So I actually just did. I took the camera to a baseball game to get some, to try to get some fast motion shots to see if there was even rolling shutter in the highest that I could get, and on a DSLR, and I couldn't even see a little bit of motion blur on the ball itself as it was moving, as the pitcher threw it at 95 miles an hour at 1/8,000th of a second, and it was still blurry. So I don't think that's rolling shutter at all. I think that's just the motion blur of the ball, and like Paul said, it depends on the subject and everything, and the fact that everything else was completely still and the ball zipped through the frame. And
personally, I enjoy a little bit of a blurred ball in those kind of pictures because it adds dynamic and depth to the whole composition.
Character and motion.
Yeah, otherwise, people might focus on the damn bright white ball in your picture instead of the pitcher or the batter. And I think a little bit blurred ball will draw a lot less attention away from the main subject of the picture.
Yes, and especially if you're doing something like sports or wildlife, something that's meant to convey motion. Like, there are certain times and compositions where you want to completely freeze motion. You want that to convey in certain circumstances when the shot calls for it. But not every single shot is intended to be taken as a complete still snapshot of reality. And that's why our lenses give us different focal planes. And why I personally enjoy using a variety of lenses, especially, and I've noticed that the more I've shot lenses, I like the wider the better. And I hear that a lot coming from a lot of older photographers, is that the more they get, they either go super telephoto or wide as the day. Oh, look, there's a turtle. He's under the water.
Nice. That should make some good pictures. Maybe we'll take a setup for you.
He's coming to the surface.
Awesome. Go get him.
I cannot get down there, Dan.
Oh, man.
Why not?
It's just shoes and pants.
Because that's pretty steep.
You know what I just heard? I heard a tiny little violin.
Oh my god.
Didn't know you could play the violin.
I can't. I just heard it.
Where did?
Has any of you guys ever seen that video? That guy who got a 300 2.8 lens, and he tried repairing the front element, and he smashed it.
Oh.
Ooh, ouch.
That ruins your months.
He got a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver. I think he was trying to get some mold out of it, and he was trying to get the front element off, and he slipped, and he scratched the hole and ruined the lens. You know.
Oh,
and
that hurts.
This is the guy.
They make plastic tools just for that.
That is the type of person who should not be taking their lens.
Yeah, right now I have the same feeling you get when somebody gets kicked in the privates on TV. It kind of the same. I feel the pain.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? I mean, can you imagine taking a metal tool to a glass element at first? I mean,
Because that's like an $8,000 lens.
not
Well,
anymore.
I think it was a Mark 1, but it was still at least $2,000 worth of lens, but he had a video talking about putting extenders on that lens, and he got like over 2.5 million views for that video. And then he did another video trying to fix his lens, and then he scratched it, completely ruined the front element. And it's like, you ruined your lens, mate. You should have just sent it to
That's
Canon.
what you call an expensive learning experience.
Yes.
Yep.
But I won't even contemplate touching the front element on my lens.
Like we call that technological Darwinism.
Yeah. But what do you guys think about the R50? Because it seems to be just like a normal Rebel, if you ask me.
I can see it for vloggers or something. I think it is a pretty neat development and invention and release from Canon, just to service that kind of niche market. I think it's
direct replacement of M50 Creator Kit.
Yeah.
And it's just basically a carbon copy of that with the R system. Because even all the lenses, we've talked about this, that they're all the same basic internals from the old mount that they're just repurposing for the R's. Makes sense. Yeah.
Considering how big of a part of society vlogging and that sort of stuff is nowadays, I think it was a pretty smart move to come out with that. And I actually expect Canon to kind of expand the markets there a little bit in the future, just seeing how popular it's become with all the new apps and shit that are out there. I can see Canon actually going not just M50 or R50, R50 Mark II. I can see him do an R80 or an R100 or an R10 or something, just to expand the market and get like, hey, I'm a professional vlogger. I need a better cam and better lens. I can actually see them in the future expand into that.
The R100, and bringing up the R50 brings up the R100. In that it reminds me of the old 60, 70, 80, 90D line, in that it was a slightly, and I think that's what I think you meant like the R8 would be the Rebel equivalent. I think it would be more of the 80, 90D equivalent to those, in that it's a slightly better build quality.
If it had that, it would have IBIS at least, and it would be more the 2-digit line. Since it doesn't have IBIS, I still give it a 3-digit line of the old DSLRs.
Yeah.
That's why I said Rebel line instead of D80 or something, 80D. If it had at least IBIS in there, I would give it, the 2-digit comparison and say, okay, this is pretty neat. It's kind of the 6D pushed into a possibly 95D or whatever they would have tried next if they would have tried to pull a full frame into a 2-digit camera body to kind of bridge. But they didn't even put IBIS in it. So for me, I would still compare it more with an advanced Rebel than with a more advanced 2-digit.
Well, the M50 Mark II or the M50 didn't have autofocus 4K. And obviously the R50 does. So it's actually a lot better than the M50 was.
Yeah, but don't forget, when the M50 and even M50 Mark II came out, we're still talking vlogging here. So if we talk about streaming power, when those cameras came out first, you couldn't stream with 4K without having massive demands on broadband or internet abilities. Nowadays, streaming 4K, shit, I expect it on my cell phone. If I don't get it, I'm pissed. So nowadays, I can see why a 4K streaming camera is standard. But back when the M50 came out first, shit, nobody would have tried to stream in 2K. They were happy to stream in 1080p. And then you were like the king dingaling out there was streaming such high pixel. Nowadays, streaming in 4K is no big deal. 4K is no big deal anymore. So I can see why they made that move.
Yeah.
But how about the other move about making the webcam utility app a subscription now, or paid? for those cameras now.
Business-wise,
So-
smart move.
Yeah, smart move.
I mean, it's just like when you go back to Adobe with their subscription outside of buying. That's how you nail. That's how you nail customers down to your business project in the long term. Subscription nowadays is the way to go. Nobody wants to spend $1,600 on a program just to be told in a year, "Oh shit, there's an update." You know, so I think I can see why everybody is going subscription with their programs.
Right, I'm just showing you on screen an example of rolling shutter regarding wildlife. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I can, but again, if you don't point it out, hardly anybody will notice.
I think it's quite obvious in the reflection there.
I cannot
But
see anything.
can you not? Well, basically, the bird at the top's got the wing closed, and then at the bottom, there's a reflection, and the wings are open. It just looks weird.
Again, nobody besides photographers like us will look at that and say, "Well, that picture sucks."
Pixel
Most
peeper.
people will see, "Oh wow, two cool birds and a really cool reflection," and move on.
Mhm.
That's the thing. Rolling shutter might be there, but it is not remotely as big as a problem as some pages or something make it sound. It's there, yes. The majority of people will never notice that it actually exists.
Yeah. Do you know why one of the good things I actually liked about Instagram was that it brought people who were photographers to let people see images that they might not have known were not perfect,
Mhm.
you know, and that, you know, because remember, sharing your pictures in groups of photographers with other photographers, guess what? They're going to be super critical.
Of course, they're going to get
None
torn
of their
apart.
opinions matter.
But post them on your personal page, and everybody's like, "Wow, awesome picture!" Just like the picture Paul just showed. Yeah, in our group, hell yeah, we're gonna tear it apart. Like, wow, this sucks.
Yeah.
Look at that rolling shutter. I mean, isn't that freaking obvious? And then I show the picture to my wife, and she's like, "Wow, that's a really cool shot. How did he manage to get that?" And she'll never notice that the wings are in a different position from the bird towards the reflection. She'll never notice because she's not a photographer. She doesn't look for that sort of thing. And neither does the majority of people out there. Don't forget, the majority of people thinks that their iPhone or Samsung or LG phones are good enough to make it to do wedding photography for them and to save on the photographer. So yeah, I'm not worried about those people looking at my pictures with a rolling shutter and saying, "Ooh, yeah, no, I'm not going to pay for that. I could have done that with my iPhone." So I think we're still relatively safe from that. Is he missing his foot? Looked like he was missing his
My
left
foot?
foot, wasn't it? No, your foot is still there. Don't worry. Keep walking.
No, I'm. Well, no, it's not missing. It's just.
Paul
lots of
showed a
inside.
different picture of another bird,
Instead
and
of
it looked like it was missing part of his foot on the left side or something.
No, I'm just showing an example of good image, really, where I'm just sort of been experimenting with sharing screens on StreamYards.
Hey, can we do that too, or can only you show the screens
Well,
as the host?
I tried giving my email address, one of my email addresses, so people could send me an image, and then I could put it on screen, you know, and critique people's images. But
Yeah.
no one sent me anything, so.
All right. Well, let me know next time, and if I make it onto the next stream, I'll send you a couple pictures. We can talk about them.
Yeah, I remember on my laptop. I think there was a tab where you could enable pictures, but it doesn't show that because I'm on my phone, and I can't even see the damn screen, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
On the Facebook group, I do believe I've posted some of my pictures from Florida if you want to show them. They were taken with the T7 with the kit lens, the 75 to 300.
It's 75 to 300? Mark III?
Yeah. Mark II.
Okay. The 75 to 300 gets a lot of flack. It doesn't deserve a lot of that. I give it that. It's not a lens I would personally choose to go and buy, but it gets a lot more flack than it deserves. It takes some really nice pictures, and I loved.
I
Early
found
when the
in
group
bright
was-
light.
Oh,
I find in bright light it's good. Low light it
It's
don't do very
expected.
good.
I mean, it's a kit lens. Even the
And
70
that
to
300
300 Mark II is not good in low light.
At 300, I get a lot of purpling in the picture. Chromatic.
Well, Lightroom, one button click, it's gone. You know, that's why I don't really care if my lens
It is.
produces chromatic aberration. I don't care. I fix it in post with one button click and it's gone. So I don't even think CA is should be a topic anymore to talk about. It's just one click and Lightroom and it's gone. And now it's like irrelevant.
So I started following and joined an astrophotography group from this one, and it has been quite interesting. Let me tell you, because a lot of these guys who end up spending thousands and thousands on telescopes and trackers and everything, using
a cell phone,
like old Rebels, like a T3.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
many of them get converted to IR actually for astrophotography.
Which is actually one of the things that I had planned to do with my 5D. It was just finding a lot of people who were still producing really, really good images with, I mean, in reality, kind of subpar equipment.
Yeah, but keep in mind, they also do 3 or 4 hour exposures.
Exactly. And it just boggled me to see why they would spend so much on all this equipment to track these images and then skimp out so much on a camera.
Because they don't need a better camera, because they get a 3 or 4 hour exposure.
Well, that's true.
That's the thing. I don't need a R3 or R1 to get those results, because I have a 3 or 4 hour exposure. I don't need a fancy camera. The fancy important part is the telescope and the mount, the tracking mount, to move as smooth as possible so you don't get any shake. And that's pretty much all you need.
Have you done some astrophotography then?
Without a tracker.
Okay.
By choice of my stupid idea of getting an advanced degree, I'm involved in astrophotography just because I use the images. I use the images a lot for my graduate degree. But other than that, I have not yet talked myself into spending $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 on a telescope.
Oh.
I would
Dan.
at some point be definitely interested in it, but right now I'd rather buy another camera and 1 or 2 more lenses.
Come down to San Antonio in October and watch the eclipse with us.
That is something I was actually considering. I might just rent a little aircraft and fly down. Would be fun.
Yeah. And if you don't make that one, there's another one in April.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Two that close together?
Of next year.
Yeah, I know, but isn't that awesome how close they are?
You're talking about lunar eclipse or solar eclipse?
Solar.
That's not. Yeah. I think we would be able to get stuff like that. Having trouble connecting. Oh.
Someday I'll be dumb enough to buy one of those.
What?
The 200 f1.8.
Oh, that's what Martin has recently bought, isn't he?
Oh, I know. I saw the post and nearly had to clean my phone off.
Yeah, not cheap though, that thing, is it?
No, if you find one for under 4, you've got a deal.
Yeah.
But the thing is worth it. That's the problem.
1.8.
I think. I mean, I like the idea for 200 1.8, but I think the next prime I buy will either be the 135 or the 85 Mark II.
Yeah.
That's a good shot.
Yeah, it's Phil Roger. He's got another Facebook group. It used to be called ATD. And he's been on my group for a little while. I tried to get him on earlier on, but he were having problems connecting. But I thought I'd play around with looking at some images while we're on.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of good stuff. The only problem is I don't know who's done it until I clicked on it, you know.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Is that Dimitri? Yeah, Demeter. He regularly posts outstanding African images, you know, from Africa. And they're brilliant. I try to get him on as well, but he says his English isn't very good.
That doesn't matter.
You know, so
just here to have fun, right?
Whose image is that then?
That's mine. It's of one of the hounds from the fox hunt I'm with, and that was the day we also certain hounds got a deep cleaning and a bath because they were going to a trial where they were judged like a show. And I had a injury, so I couldn't really help them with that. So I figured I'd just bring my camera and take some nice pictures for them. And that was actually just with a 24-105 f4 Mark I.
Yeah. Problem with using a 2.8, while you would get a bit more of the background out of focus, you wouldn't get probably the nose.
Oh no, I would be way too close for a 2.8 in there. I mean, that's just a little like a not even as deep as a car garage, you know, to take the pictures. I would be way too close for a 2.8 unless 24x70 2.8 maybe. Yeah, I could do it, but the focus would just be the focal plane would be too small.
Yeah.
They were just fun, you know. There were fun pictures to take. It was a fun day, so I figured, why not?
Yeah.
Let's see what else I can dig up quickly here, just for fun.
It's a pity they don't put more information in the images when they put them up. You know, like what the camera is, what the lens, what the aperture was, and
everything I sent you now in the group is with the 1DX Mark II and the Sigma 2470 2.8.
Yeah, that's a good image, that.
I'm pretty happy with that setup.
Yeah. There's not much wrong with that image at all. Nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, that's my miniature horse Topaz. He is turning 8 this May. And he is most definitely in charge out there. I got him as a 7-month-old, and he arrived in the back of a Ford Ranger inside a goat box. He was so tiny. I lifted him out. That's my cat, Hope. I rescued her from the storm drain underneath, 20 foot underneath a local Lowe's home improvement parking lot, where we had to crawl actually into the sewer and pull her out. She was screaming so loud, we thought we were going after an adult cat, and she was about a 9 or 10-week-old kitten. Yeah. But echo down there made her sound a lot older than bigger than she was.
You can't see the noise in that though, can't you? The noise.
I shot that inside without any additional light, and I think I shot it at something in the 20,000s of ISO.
Really? It's not too bad then, is it?
No, it's not bad at all.
Because I would have thought that was maybe 1600, maybe.
No.
No.
Now, I had zero light in the house other than the kitchen light. and that was pretty much it. And behind her, you can see the TV is on, but that's also light I had available.
Because my 7D that I had would give me that sort of noise around 1600.
Mm-hmm.
So
What lens was?
That I think was with the 60-600 a test shot. Actually, I'm not 100% sure. They all ended up in the same folder with the cats, and I would have to go on the Meta and figure it out. But it might have been with the 60-600 once I unpacked it and just tried it out quickly.
yeah.
You know, hunting for subjects around the house.
It's a good lens, that.
I love that lens.
Yeah.
And don't forget, it's Facebook Messenger upload. The picture looks a lot better on my screen in the original than it does on the upload there.
Yeah, well, you know, Facebook ain't the greatest for compression.
No. Oh God, those are old. God damn.
That's if I'm not
F1.
mistaken, that's an f4.5 lens.
Yeah, I just found some I took in 2016 with my 5D Mark II back in the day. Holy shit. I'm gonna hide those.
That's a chunker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what we got here. Yeah, these are definitely with the 2.8, because I remember taking those when I just got the 2.8 2470 from Sigma to try it out.
Problem is, you're not, well, actually, you can see it in the window, can't you?
Mm-hmm. That behind him is actually a rather scratched up bug screen. I open the window and the bug screen is there to keep the cats in and bugs out, but of course they play with stuff crawling over it, so now and then I have to buy new screens. But the cats love it when the windows are open.
Yeah.
That's Hope again in front of our gas fireplace.
Because you're not going to see the 2.8 aperture very well unless you've got a bit of distance behind it.
Yeah.
You know, like that one.
Yeah.
You
That
know.
is our rescue cat Akbar.
I
that my
2.8
wife actually
is people think
Did Alan say something?
I don't know. I think he was trying to.
So it's 2.8 something.
Yeah.
It blows the background out. But I think people do underestimate the difference between 2.8 and f4, where it's not as pronounced as people think it is. It's only a slight difference. It's not a mega difference.
Nope.
Because I noticed that when I had my 500 Sigma and I compared the difference between no, it was 7200 I was comparing. The difference between the 2.8, f4 and 5.6. 2.8 and f4 difference is hardly noticeable. There's only a slight difference.
Mm-hmm.
You know, did a video on that actually, just to show the difference, and it's just the amount of light that enters your lens that's the main difference.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I took around Christmas with my horses in my barn with the Alien B 1200 in a 48-inch octagonal Godox softbox.
Yeah.
And with my 2470 2.8.
Did you overexpose that?
No.
No.
Nope.
So
I just use flash to black out everything in the background.
All right, I see where you're going. Yeah.
I overpowered all the surrounding light.
Yeah.
With the powerful Alien B 1200.
Yeah. That's pretty good. That.
Well, that looks horrible after I sent it via Facebook. Good God. You gotta hate Facebook. It ruins the pictures you upload for sure.
Yes, it does.
That's our mare Trixie. We bred her ourselves.
Yeah.
She was a little confused about me showing up on the other side of the softbox. That's why her eye is kind of a little bit wide on the front. She's kind of eyeing me with my camera poking up around the corner.
What is that idiot doing? She's thinking.
Oh, she is always game to do something, whatever it is. She's not scared of shit, and she always wants something going on, or she gets bored. She's hilarious. That's my wife Karen with her main fox hunting horse Ginger.
Yeah.
In her informal attire, the jacket and stuff. It's not the formal attire. Let's hope again. On that one, you can really see the depth of field from the 2.8 focus.
Yeah.
Worked pretty well on that one. I mean, the background isn't all that blurred, but it's pretty much plain white other than the kickboard, so it's not that baseboard, so it's actually not that bad. But the foreground and the hardwood really shows you when you all of a sudden hit the focal plane and everything is tack sharp, and then coming towards you, everything all of a sudden blurs off.
Yeah. You've ramped the ISO on that one, haven't you? Ramped the ISO quite high.
No, on that one the ISO definitely wasn't high.
Well, it looks quite noisy in that image.
Not on my screen.
No?
Hang on, let me see if I can find it very quick here again. All right, not in this folder. Nope, not that one. Not that one. Nope. Oh, those aren't mine. Nope. What the hell? No. No, I think at that point the ISO was limited to 3200 or something. That's usually what I limit my ISO to.
Right. You'll seem a bit higher than that to looking at that. It looks similar to that other one where you said it was around 20,000.
No, it's not.
Okay.
More options. Properties, maybe there. Advanced. Details.
Have you just photoshopped the
ISO is 3200 on that picture.
Right.
Focal length was 70, f2.8, exposure 1/30th of a second. Yeah, and I wish I could show it to you on my screen right now. Because
does it look cleaner on yours?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a whole different picture compared to
what Facebook does.
After Facebook does, I message it to you via Facebook, and then we see it through that program here right now that is also not super kind to the pictures.
Yeah. Because I see a lot of these eagle ones from someone called Regus G. Talbot.
We've turned into quite a bit of a bird group there lately.
Yeah, well, because one of the questions that I've been going through earlier on, What's that other dude called? I forgot. That I had on it earlier on. He was one of moderators. Marshall. He's had to go and rush off and see his mother because she's ill, so that's why he's not on today. But we're talking about the atmospheric conditions of temperatures with lenses and how you can get soft images because your lens is all fogged up. And he seemed to be a bit oblivious to the idea that your lens needs to be at the same temperature that it is outside.
Yeah.
Or you're going to get a soft image, because someone has got the very same lens I've got, that Canon 100 to 500. And she says, why is this lens so crap and bad? And it's not giving me sharp images. And I'm thinking, well, this is an L lens you've bought. It's going to give you really good results. But if you're taking your lens out of a warm boot into a cold environment, your lens is going to fog up and give you blurry images, you know.
Yep.
So, you know, some people think there's something wrong with the lens when they go out into outside, you know, where it's cold or warmer, whichever, and they don't quite understand how basic physics works regarding, you know, how the temperature will affect the glass on your lens.
Well, I can say if I understand anything, it's physics.
Yeah. Well, all it is you just give your lens time to equalize, you know.
Yeah, it's just like we're walking outside when you wear glasses.
Exactly. There's no difference. And it makes me laugh when sometimes they say, oh, this lens is terrible. What, this £2,500 lens is terrible, is it? You know?
Yeah, it's a much bigger chance that you screwed something up. Those were taken at a clinic for local farriers, blacksmiths.
Yeah.
And he's my farrier, as a guy who hosted it, and he asked me just to be there and take some pictures for his webpage and for advertising for further clinics.
Well, you didn't get too close to that fire.
I was pretty damn close.
Yeah.
But it's okay. If the lens can't handle that, I'll send it back to Sigma and say, go fuck yourself.
That's very diplomatic.
Isn't it? That's the German in me coming through.
Mm.
He bought a new forge, that one. So I took a couple pictures of him so he could send them to the company that hand makes them.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to drop off. I got to go take care of the dog real quick.
Sure.
So,
No problem. Thanks for
Good
coming.
meeting you, Terry.
yep. So, have a good day.
You too.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
And then I just took a couple neat shots around he just built that shop. So I took a couple neat shots with him with pretty narrow field of depth of field. So that's a focus. So he could, he actually printed that one rather large and it's hanging in the shop now. It's just all the different belts for his belt sander.
Yeah. A good example of depth of field.
Mm-hmm. That's what I saw, and it just looked cool, and I took it, and then I just sent it to him, and he liked it so much, he actually had it printed.
That's nice.
Yeah, just cutting some more bar steel to make horseshoes out of.
Have you played around with the colors?
A little.
Well, yeah.
It looked okay in colors, but it looked a lot better in the darker sepia tones than it did in natural colors.
Yeah.
It has more flair in the setup than it did in the original colors.
Mm.
It was a very bright day, so in the original colors, the sparks and stuff don't really show. Another good show of depth of field.
Yeah.
For a 2.8 lens.
Yeah.
You can see I laid the focus on the hammer, the second from the right, on the head of that hammer. That's where I laid the focus point.
Yeah. Good example of depth of field.
Mm-hmm. That's I think his first horse farrier forge that and his wife wrote that on that for him. You know, when he started and moved down here and had to start over and stuff. So I thought it was a really cool message.
Yeah.
And took that picture and sent it to him as well. He liked that one a lot, and so did his wife.
Yeah.
It's the same forge in the background we just looked at, but this time with anvil and stuff in front of it.
Yeah, good texture in the wood.
Mm-hmm. He actually put the wood up and stuff himself. He was very proud of that. So I tried to get some shots where it shows off the nice wood. That was his apprentice at that time, who is now pretty much doing his own thing as a farrier.
Yeah.
But he cranked that kit like a machine, turned out 4 or 5 custom horseshoes in the time. Most others did 1 or 2. That guy was on a roll, and he lives and dies from Mountain Dew, so I made very sure that a Mountain Dew can is in the shot. And my farrier actually had that one printed and gave it to him as a gift when he kind of graduated away from being an apprentice and did his own thing.
And that's sponsored by Mountain Dew.
Yeah. So it was kind of cool.
Not everything. I've seen
No,
that
you
one.
looked at that one already. Yep.
Yeah.
Just some nice sky that came up over our pasture, and I had enough time to go inside, get my camera out and ready, and take the shot before the colors disappeared.
Yeah.
Which, believe it or not, here in North Carolina, the colors, the painted skies are a lot shorter than they are in the UK or in Germany. Because we are quite a bit closer to the equator than you guys are, so we have a lot shorter sunset sunrise time than you guys have.
Yeah.
So it was quite the race for time. That's again our cat Akbar. My wife rescued that one in Kabul, Afghanistan on her last deployment. She met him.
Oh.
And she and her roommate got a fundraiser going to fund his move to America. And they're like, hey, if he can get that funded, do you think you can give him a home? I was like, yeah, sure. If you get the $3,600, I'll give him a home. Ding, next day. Yeah, we got the money. Shit. All right, got a new cat. So he went in quarantine and everything. They literally, technically, the soldiers over there weren't allowed to interact with the local cats. So they had a local cab pull up while they had caught that cat, like the evening before. Had a cab pull up and literally threw the crate with the cat in the cab and ran off, and the cab ran to the airport. It was hilarious.
Right.
And he has turned into a really nice house cat. The picture doesn't show it, but he is huge. We are by breed and what he looks like, he does not match any of the other strays in Kabul. So we are very sure he is a Russian Longhair. Right. And we are very sure he was left behind by some embassy staff or something. And he has readjusted to being an indoor cat very well and is a very cuddly now. He is also very loud if he wants anything, like attention at 2 a.m. But he's a fun cat to have around. You can see his left ears, actually the tip is clipped off, which was done by the U.S. Department of State because they took care of the cats on the compound by making sure they are wormed and vaccinated and neutered or spayed. And the clipped ear was the indication that this cat is actually one that is safe.
Right. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, if that isn't a memory to bring home from a deployment, I don't know what is, other than a gunshot wound.
Well, yeah.
That cat's name is Spitfire. And he got that name also for a reason, because he was pretty much spitting fire as a 6 weeks old kitten when we rescued him. And he would fight for his food bowl. Once you put the food in, to the death, even if you were reaching for it, he would fight you. And he was about half the size of my hand, but he would still fight it to the death to protect his food. So we named him Spitfire. Sadly, he is an outdoor cat on the farm now because he continuously had issues figuring out the litter box. And that is just a big no-no. That's just a little snapshot that was funny because my cat is completely cock-blocking me access to any of my other gear other than the camera lens I had out because he is sleeping on my camera bag.
Yeah. So have you missed these streams?
Yeah, definitely. That's why I tried hard to come on today.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has been.
How long it's been? It's been 2 months, maybe.
Yeah, I think, like you said, we have a hard time getting enough people interested in joining. It might be worth doing like every other month instead of 1 or 2 a month. Might be easier to get people excited about it and get some people to commit. I don't know. Might be wrong. But
it feels like I'm begging half at time, you know.
Yep.
You know, it's like Kelly Whitaker. She does these aircraft pictures quite often. She said, I'll come on. I'll come on." And I thought, right, that'd be nice. I'll have a special guest.
Yeah.
And then nothing.
That doesn't happen. Yeah, that's sad.
You know. That's somewhat local to me.
Nice. If anything is British, those phone booths are British.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to show me anything else. If you show that, everybody know where that picture was taken. Around the world, everybody knows.
Yeah. Like iconic red buses, eh?
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a pity they got rid of them.
Yeah.
You know, believe it or not, various countries in the world bought London red buses.
Hey, looks like Terry sent a message that he sent you some pictures too on Facebook.
So well then.
There he is.
So first one is not sure what type of bird that is.
One that flies, I think.
Well, obviously.
Well, not all birds fly.
Mm.
Yeah, I don't know my way around birds at all, so I just call him bird. Because everybody knows bird is a word. Hey, kitty cat. What's that? Is that a Bengal? Looks like a Bengal.
I think it's a cheetah.
Cheetah? Oh, okay.
Might be cheetah.
Nice.
Nice
shot. I like it.
There's a bit of motion blur in that one.
Not bad with the T7 and the 75-300. Look at that. For that, it's really not bad. I mean, honestly, there's no IS in that lens and nothing.
Tell you what, I absolutely can't stand those 75-300 and 70-300 Canon lenses. They're just terrible. I've owned loads of them, and the chromatic aberration in them is terrible, and the final image quality, I could never get anything pin sharp from them.
Yeah.
Unless
I never used the 75 myself. I had the 70-300 IS Mark 1.
Yeah.
And that was a surprisingly amazing lens, actually. I loved using that one.
I actually ended up getting rid of them all. I think I owned 4 of them when I was doing photography. I ended up getting the Sigma 75-300 macro lens. And it was way sharper than the Canon ones. Way sharper.
I had the Sigma one as well, and I had much more success with the 70-300 IS Mark 1 from Canon compared to the Sigma one.
Really?
On my back then 350D.
I know there was chromatic aberration on it, but it was It wasn't too bad.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved the fact it had the macro function on it, which was
That was
half-life,
nice. That was nice. I enjoyed that.
half-life size, which
Yeah.
was fantastic.
No, that part was great about it.
Because I remember being forced to use something stupid like a 70 to 210 lens.
Oh, what was it? The Sigma or Tamron did that? The 70 to 210?
Oh, it was a Canon one.
Was it a Canon?
It was like push-pull zoom.
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yes.
horrible.
Yes.
Absolutely horrible.
That sums it up pretty well.
Yeah. I could never get sharp image. I actually went to Chester Zoo before. I don't know if you know this, but a lot of zoos have started putting terms and conditions in their websites and their tickets to say you're not permitted to take professional photographs and sell them.
Yeah, it's crazy.
All the zoos have these terms and conditions, although it'd be hard to prove if you've done it in a certain way.
That was taken at the North Carolina Zoo in Asheboro over here in North Carolina with 1DX Mark II and the Sigma 60 to 600 at 600 millimeters.
That's pretty good. That was that at 6.3.
Yep. Not bad, huh?
No, a lot of people think these 6.3 lenses can't get sharp images at 6.3, but
I think I just proved them wrong.
unless you're going to be overly critical.
Of course, you can rip every picture apart. I mean, I can rip any image that comes across us, wherever from in the world. You can rip it apart.
Is that image going to be a bit sharper at f8? Probably, but does it matter? No. Because that's where the sweet spot for these 6.3 lenses are at f8.
Yeah, most of the time it's 8, maybe 10. But at 6.3, it gave me still enough light to get good shots. Fast enough shots that I had could freeze motion.
That's the difference, you see, between the zoom lenses and the prime lenses. The prime lenses at f4 will give you tack sharp images at f4. But to get a sort of parity with your zoom lens, you need to stop it down by one stop.
Yeah.
But sometimes you might not tell the difference if you aren't really looking for it.
Mm-hmm. Little lemur just enjoying the day. All the giraffe shots are at 600.
You see, this is where 2.8 lenses in the forest comes into its own.
That is actually a 2.8 shot.
Really?
Yeah, it's a Sigma 120 to 300 2.8.
Yeah.
It was nearly pitch black in that room.
Oh, explains the
It's
noise.
not outside, it's inside an enclosure with a roof, with kind of a cave-like entrance where you look through the window, because it's also, I think, more night active, so they keep it dark for the people to see them active.
Right.
So I had to fight for that one, and I actually switched my 60 to 600 for the 120 to 300 2.8 to get that shot. And in my defense, it is shot through a pane of glass.
For me, it's the noise that stands out, really, in the background.
Yeah.
But that's to be expected if it's dark, you know.
Yeah, it was really dark. You had a hard time finding the animals in there because you were a little bit further away from the pane. It was really dark in there. So I would, with that shot, with what it is and where I got it, I'm ecstatic for that shot.
But I tell you what, shooting through glass is a nightmare, isn't it?
It is. And that's where a lot of the small issues in that image come from, is shooting through that big, thick pane of glass that kids, smash their faces against and everything. So.
Yeah, it's all the crap on that glass as well.
Oh yeah.
Because I remember being in a different zoo in the UK, trying to photograph tigers. I just couldn't get anything through that glass. It was useless.
Yeah, it's horrible. I'd rather shoot through a chain link fence than through glass any day.
Yep. At least you can zoom through the gaps.
Yeah, exactly. And even not even, I mean, there will be chain link in front of the front element, but it's gets completely removed by the lens, by the zoom. You don't see it. It's not there. There's no effect on the picture.
Well, it depends on the angle of view and the size of the gap in the fence, because some angle of view on some lenses, like the 800 f11 I've got, its angle of view is something like 2 degrees.
Yeah, I did f11. That's a whole different story. But I shoot through those lenses, through those fences. You know, if you shoot a 2.8 or a 5.6 or 6.3, you have no effect from the chain link fence whatsoever.
So if you get that lens right up to the fence,
that's what you have to do. You have to have the fence, the lens touch the fence.
You'll go right through it, literally.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do. I have the lens hood will touch the fence if I shoot through chain link.
But you can move the lens to the left or right, and you'll see a bit of distortion from the actual wire itself.
I've never noticed, especially when you zoom in at like 500 or 600. There's really nothing that chain link will show up unless you have your computer analyze the image. That might find something, but otherwise it's completely invisible, which is great.
Because all it takes is moving it to the left or right or up a little bit, and you can get through it. You know, I've noticed that a few times when I've done it.
Yep.
That's interesting.
I liked him with his reflection in the completely mirror-like water.
Yeah.
It was just a cool shot that I had to take. Also a pretty dark environment, but now and then it was the outside. It was still dark, overcast, with a lot of trees, but it was enough light to give me a good ISO at a reasonable shutter speed, and I could get a pretty good shot of it.
Couldn't you have come down a little bit?
No, sadly not, because there was a wall.
Oh, right. Okay. It will look cool getting more of it.
Yeah, it would have been cooler to do it 50-50 split in the picture, but I could not get any lower.
Right.
Not without reaching in the enclosure, which might have cost me my camera, lens, and arm.
Yeah. I've seen that one.
Yeah, did that one. That was surprisingly dark because he had his head stick right in the dark spot of the trees to graze a little bit on the leaves there.
Yeah.
But again, 600 millimeters, 6.3. Not too shabby, I think.
Not too bad.
Nice.
That was Marshall.
Yeah.
I think I were debating with him actually about the lens he was using in this. And I was asking him what was the aperture on it.
Oh, the 50 1.4?
Yeah, look at that, 1.4. It's what you need to get a decent image.
But he shot it at 3.5.
Yeah. What you got to remember, I think Marshall likes to do a lot of, event photography at night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a challenge no matter what you've got.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no doubt about that.
It's like I used to use my Sigma 17 to 55 2.8 APS-C lens.
I never had that one. I always wanted it for my back then crop camera, but I never got it.
Yeah, I never had a problem with it. It was very sharp.
Yeah, I heard always great reviews. That's why I wanted it. But for what I did back then with my crop camera for the equine photography, there was just no need for that focal length.
Yeah. I think I compared it to the Canon kit lens 18 to 55 once. I did a video about it. And they were more or less comparable to each other in quality.
I mean, it was supposed to be comparable to the 2470 2.8 from Canon. Just for a crop to get the equivalent focal length on a crop camera.
Yeah.
That was the idea behind that lens, the 70 to 55 2.8. The idea was to give the crop cameras the same focal length equivalent as a 24 to 70 2.8. And for that, it did great, I think. I just never had the use for that focal length back then. Now I love that lens, the actual 24 to 70 2.8. But back then, I had no need for that. I would never put it on my camera. That would have been a waste of money.
Sigma, Sigma also brought out I think it was a 24 to 70 variable aperture, which started at 2.8 and then ended up at f4.
At 4, yeah.
Yeah. But I never felt the need of having to get that. Because
like you, I don't have the need for that wide. I need more zoom than I need wide. Like I like the idea of the Canon 70 to 40. I just don't know what I would do with it. That's my problem.
Sorry, the 17 to 40 you said, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I looked at that and I was going to buy it at one point, but I had no image stabilization.
Yeah.
And Canon had just released the 35, 16 to 35.
Yeah.
The
Mark II?
It's a better lens, basically.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
But again, it's so wide, I don't really have use for that. The 24/7, 70 I usually use between 40 and 70 is the average zoom I use on that.
Well, the reason I got the 10 to 18 EFS lens, which gives a similar field of view, was at the time I was applying for a job as a property photographer.
Yep. For that, it's perfect. And that's where the 70 to 40 shined as well back in the day. And now what is it, 16 to 35?
Yeah.
They are amazing for that. Or yours, the EFS version. I mean, that's what they were meant to do.
Yeah.
They're perfect for that. You get the whole living room and everything, and even if they are smaller living rooms, it's amazing.
Yeah. It's amazing what you can get in. And they were ideal for doing vlogs as well. Especially with APS-C cameras,
Yeah.
Let's see what else I'm doing. Taking pictures of the moon is incredibly difficult.
Yes, it is.
Because one day you can have a sharp image, but the thing is, I find difficult is I'll end up having this area here not quite sharp, and yet around the edges or the side or the outer area of the moon, it'll be sharp. And I've known people of what they've done is they've taken a bracketed various images of the moon.
That's what you have to do. The thing is, with the moon, it's close enough that as a big zoom to get a good shot of it, your depth of field all of a sudden is actually a pretty massive impact on the picture of the moon, because that thing is so close by its size that you have trouble getting a good all-in-one focus. So because you need the wide open aperture to get enough light, otherwise you have to take an image with on a tripod with a follower, or you're gonna get blur because your exposure is too long, and the moon will literally move through your image.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was videoing the moon, and I was amazed at how quickly it was moving across.
Oh yeah. People don't notice unless you look through a zoom lens. All of a sudden, same with a telescope. You set up your telescope and you look at Venus or Mars or another star, and every couple seconds you have to adjust because you see it starting to wander through your field of view in your telescope, which is a very, very small angle. So you have to move it a lot to keep track. And that's why people spend so much money, like we said earlier, on those trackers that are GPS and computer guided, that you're able to follow those stars and actually see something.
Yeah.
Because every time you adjust your telescope manually, there's enough shake that everything is blur.
Because if you look here, you see these craters here, not crystal clear, but they're in focus.
Yeah.
But I know there's craters here, and it's a blur. There's nothing.
Yeah, that's a depth of field issue already, because the moon is so big, so
Yeah.
close, with that much zoom, you actually already get that much depth of field issues. That's why you really need to get a really good shot of the moon, like everything in focus. You would need 15 to 25 images for different brackets and brackets them together to get a really good shot.
Yeah.
But if you take that many images again, you need the automatic tracker, or it starts moving.
Yeah. It's a difficult one, isn't it?
Yep. That's what makes communicating with probes like Voyager 1 and 2 that are billions of miles away so difficult, because you can easily miss them if we don't focus our transmission disk perfectly. The good old telephoto lens, manual zoom.
One of those cheap and nasty October thingies that you can buy off eBay.
Yeah.
Like a 460 to 1300 lens.
Yep.
But the glass is
it's like window glass.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bought a Vivitar 800 f8 lens once. And I took some pictures of someone's door.
The reflex one? The reflex lens?
No, glass.
Yeah, no, where it has a little mirror in the front as well that actually projects the image onto your sensor?
No. It was complete solid.
Oh, okay.
Loads of elements in it.
Okay.
And I took a picture of someone's door, and I used to think chromatic aberration from that 120 to 400 Sigma lens was bad. In this lens, which I called the Canon, and it literally was a bazooka Canon. You know, a shocking, literally as long as my arm span, and it was atrocious quality-wise.
Yeah, I bet.
It had some fungus on it as well.
Oh yeah, that doesn't help at all.
But
that's where it comes in, where people are like, oh, I can do this with my Rebel lenses Optica I bought off of eBay. I get 1300 millimeters zoom. You only get 600 with your Sigma 600 Sport. Yeah, want to compare at 600, or want me to put a 2x extender on and then compare? I'm pretty sure I still win.
Yeah.
But that's the thing many people don't get, and why they don't comprehend why we spend that much on glass.
Yeah, it's like when I tell people I spent $2,500 on that 100 to 500. You what?
That's what I spent on the 120 to 300 2.8 used. $2,600. But worth it. Totally worth it. But they don't get it. It's the same for my horses. I mean, can I buy a saddle for $500? Yeah. Do I want to? Hell no. It's normal to spend $3,000-$4,000 on a saddle. You know, that's just what it is. It's like buying shoes. You can buy the cheap shoes at Walmart and then see how your feet feel after an hour of walking, or you buy the good ones for $200 and let's compare.
Yeah. Do you ever get sick and tired of people showing off their gear though?
Yes.
Like look at this one then. Look what I can afford. I'm rich. I can get all this.
Yeah. Whatever, dude. You do you. You know. I don't care. Just because you have the gear doesn't mean your pictures are good.
You know, I don't know. I'd say at least 15 grand there, maybe.
Yeah.
400 2.8. God, obviously that's the Sigma.
And then of course you always have to see, was it bought new? Was it bought used? How much did the employer pay for that? You know, it's very easy to show that stuff off, but how much did you actually do for it?
Well, the two R5s are worth about $4,000 each, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got all the Trinity 2.8s and F4s, and they're all right.
You know what? Good for him for having it, but honestly, how many lenses, how many bodies do you need? You know.
I know. I think it sort of rubs it in the nose of people that can't afford that stuff. You know.
Yeah.
You know,
and I mean, good for him. Can I afford it? Yeah. Do I want to? No. Don't see the point.
I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You can spend all this money if you want, and then just have that on your shelf, or bugger off to Africa with a few of these stuff and get the images of a lifetime.
Exactly.
You know,
Get 2 or 3 of those lenses, 2 bodies, and spend the rest on the trip where you actually get shots you will never get again.
yeah,
Go to the rainforest and take shots you will never see again. You might even discover a new species, who knows? Go to Nigeria or whatever and do the picture safari, like you said. You'll
Yeah.
never get those shots again. It's a once-in-a-lifetime shot. Go and take a Arctic cruise on a cruise liner that goes through the Arctic and take those shots. You'll never get them again. And only a fraction of people will ever be there to take those pictures.
Hmm.
So that's what I would rather do.
I think Marshall were talking about going to Iceland. He said he's always wanted to go there.
Yeah.
You know,
Iceland is pretty. That's one of the ones I still also would like to go and visit. But it's getting a little late. I gotta go start taking care of the horses for the evening stuff and start making dinner. I'm making homemade potato soup for dinner today. That's cute. We have bird feeders outside our window, so our cats get very excited watching the birds all day when they eat.
Yeah, you can always tell how good the lens is when you can see virtually nothing in the background.
Yeah,
and you can see this is like sharp. So I don't really say it, but
it's not that. The bird, actually, the bird feeder is more in focus than the birds are.
Yeah, I'd say you're right, actually.
Yeah, but again, still a great shot. I love it. It's cute.
Yeah, there's lots of images, but it's hard to. You know what would be nice if it was a way of putting files of images in, so you know it's from one particular person. You know.
Yeah.
Because so many.
And technically, we can do that. We can have folders where people can upload their pictures into for the group.
Yeah. Let me just show everyone something, so if we can get to the top of it. Not many images. No, that'd be easy to go to the community thing and then.
Yeah.
I just want to show people. If you go to albums, live stream videos, that's where all the streams are. If you want to watch past episodes.
All the good ones have this face in it.
You know, my favourite one is this one actually.
Which one is that?
It's from the 12th of December, where I've got Alan, you and me.
The second one I ever did? Or was it, yeah, the second one, right?
Yeah.
The first?
I think it might have been first one.
Could have been first. Actually, I thought we did it like in November the first, but still, it was fun. We had a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like doing these streams. They are fun. You know, it's nothing serious, and we can just talk about stuff, and it's easier than typing. And just wish we could get more people interested in being like special guests or something, like our avionics photographer, the guy who takes all the shots of the military birds. That would be amazing to have him come here and talk about it.
Well, what I would like to do is, if at some point get Christopher Rao on here. I put him down as a expert. This is the guy that beat his alcohol, addiction through photography.
Impressive. I like him already. That's strong. I mean, I used to be a medic. I dealt with people fighting addiction a lot, and I know how hard it is to fight it.
Yeah, this is the dude here, Christopher Rao. He has Instagram posts and all sorts of. Although for some reason he's got no posts on there, but I think he's got a website on Instagram where he's got amazing photography.
I bet.
And yeah, he's a chef, and obviously he does long hours. And I've just been trying to get him on because he's always busy, you know.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, especially as a chef. I mean, whenever we do this, it will be prime time for him for work. So
Yeah.
it makes sense. But like I said, I gotta start cooking too and get the horses settled for the night. It's gonna get a little cold here again, so
Yeah.
they can't stay out. They're all prima donnas, so they have to come in and blah blah blah. And I still have to unload the trailer and stuff from the horse show. I just came home and came up to be on here, and so I still have to take care of all that stuff.
No problem.
But it was fun. I'm glad I made it again, and I hope we'll have one again relatively soon, and I'll make it again.
Yeah.
All
Thanks
right.
for
Well,
coming.
thanks for hosting, Paul, and I will talk to you later.
All right. Thank you.
You have a good night.
Bye-bye. Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call it a day. So, Canon and cameras, there is programs out there that will take multiple pics of the moon and stack them together, so you don't need to use a tracker. That's interesting. Right, since it's getting on a bit, this stream has been going on for 3 hours. What I will do is banners brand. I'll just put the intro video on. Just want to say a big thank you for everyone that has been watching. I try and fill, these streams with information. I've gone through some questions, so if any of you in the last couple of weeks have posted questions on the Canon Lenses and Cameras Facebook group, I've answered some of these questions in the earliest part of this video. So, if you've come across this, and I recommend you go back to the beginning, and I will have addressed some of these questions. And big thank you for coming and watching, and have a nice day.
I'm in forest looking for some exciting images of birds. Let's just see what we can get.